has been monitoring some developments in some of the schools with the students.
Academic activities in all 46 colleges of education across the country have stalled following weeks of strike by the teachers. Students in some of the colleges have left the campuses while the few who are staying back idle about. The teachers are on an indefinite strike to compel government to increase their market premiums and book and research allowance. Addressing journalists in Kumasi, SITAG President Prince Obinhima described the directive by the National Council for Tertiary Education to withhold November salaries of the striking teachers as unlawful. He says members will not return to the negotiation table with government if the salaries are not validated and paid. SITAG has accused Public Relations Officer for the Education Ministry of churning out falsehood on issues relating to the strike action. Mr. Obinhima says the association will honor the invitation of the National Labour Commission, which is scheduled for Thursday.
We wish to state that the students we teach over there are not any different from the relatives we have. We have our relatives, we have our church members, we have our countrymen, we have our people there. We have slaved so much to bring the colleges up to the level that we are today. For having to start this diploma program from 2004 up to 2018 without due recognition, 14 good years. Anytime we wish to take the action, we think of the students. Anytime we attempt to take up the action, we think of the students. Now, we think that our people who have gone home, we have seen their plight. It is not anything, good to write home about. That is why we are taking this action. We are on this note calling on the students, calling on the parents, calling on civil society organizations, calling on church leaders, calling on the Christian Council, and what have you, the National House of Chiefs, all the people who have teacher education at heart to speak up and advise the government to do what they have to do. Because when we were passing the act to upgrade the colleges to tertiary status, government ought to have known that it wasn't going to be only students coming out, but they also were going to be responsible towards the teachers who were going to teach over there.
All right, so you had the SITAG President, Prince Hima, ending that report by Hafiz Tijani, our Ashanti regional correspondent. Meanwhile, some of the students of the College of Education who spoke to City News appealed to government to settle the impasse to enable them resume classes. City News' Beverly Longden visited the Accra College of Education, where students appealed for a truce.
One of the busiest colleges of education in the country, located here in Accra, turns out empty and quiet with only a handful of students on campus. This is as a result of the ongoing strike by the Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana, SITAG, who are demanding payment for their interim market premiums and book research allowances. The president of the Student Representative Council of the school, Solomon Owusu-Akwete, say the strike is having a toll on their academic activities.
It's affecting all levels. Level 100s, 200s, and 300s. They are all affected. With the level 100s, they are in for a new course. They are in for degree. And they met no tutor, no orientation. So they are just moving about. We as level 200s cannot assist them in any way because our course is different from theirs. Coming to level 200, we are doing methods, this year methodology, and with these methods, you can't learn them on your own to understand. You need a teacher's introduction. Yes, but here like the kids tutors on strike, we have no handouts, and so we are just moving about. Coming to level 300, they are out now, having their teaching practice out now, and they are supposed to be supervised by tutors. But here lies the case, the tutors on strike. So they are also there without supervision. So the strike is affecting all of us.
Yesterday, a meeting between the teachers and the National Labour Commission ended in a stalemate, The teachers have refused to return to the negotiation table with their employers until their withheld November salaries are paid. The students can only appeal to the government to attend to the concerns of their teachers.
We are pleading with the government to iron out its differences with SITAC for them to return to the classroom. So we are pleading with the government.
Well, you heard and saw Selorm Adonoo Akwete, SRC president of the Accra College of Education, ending Beverly London's report. Now, let's do a quick interview. President of SITAC, Prince Obin Hima, joins us on the line to bring us up to speed on what this decision by government means for them. Mind you, in the week or earlier in the week, they had called for a closure or a shutdown of the colleges. Now that government has closed down the colleges, let's see what SITAC thinks. Hello, good morning, Prince.
Good morning.
Yes, welcome to the big issue. Yesterday, government shut down all 46 colleges of education. Of course, I remember earlier in the week, you as president, you called for the closure of the schools. Are you happy now that government, consistent with the act or statute, has closed down the schools?
The line is very faint. I can hardly hear you. I don't know if sometimes can be done.
All right. What I'm actually asking is that how does the closure of the colleges come to you as SITAC?
Well, good morning to you and thanks for the opportunity. I am not very happy, and I know every teacher in the College of Education will not be happy that the colleges have closed down. But our emotion doesn't even count in this situation.
I miss you.
As teachers in the colleges, and for that matter, gatekeepers of teaching and learning in the colleges, we envisage that we will get to a moment like this. Because the colleges are established by an act, and the act also give power to the statutes. So whatever it is in the statutes have to be, respected. So it was there, and it has always been there, that if students do not attend lectures for 21 days, they cannot write end of semester exam. That is why we activated conversation about a week ago, so that we will all be advised and then work accordingly. Unfortunately, the inclined position taken by government did not help things. Where we are doesn't help anybody's purpose. It doesn't help anybody's purpose. I think it offers a sober reflection to government and to SITAC, so that all of us, both of us, will know that we need to do what we are supposed to do. Government has to listen to us, because in the face of the law, we believe that what we are asking for is not something outrageous. We are asking for something that exists within the tertiary fraternity. So going before the National Labour Commission on Monday, I know that we will all prepare our minds and hearts, so that whatever the commission directs, we'll all go by it, and then we'll follow due process, and then find solution to the problem.
All right, but you talk about the entrenched position of government. Government also thinks that you are failing to make compromises. In essence, you also have an entrenched position. So it appears both sides, do not want to compromise. But government or the NLC has said that your strike is illegal. That is why government is not paying your November salaries. Is there anything you can do to regularize your strike?
We have always said that what happened during the negotiation wasn't negotiation, but it was an imposition. Because if we come in there, you tell us you have mandate to only negotiate for 5%, but you don't have to go beyond it. And the budget had already taken care of what we were negotiating. Then what is the essence of negotiation? For 5 times we come and you stick to that. There has been told to communicate to us, and that is not negotiation. And we have proven, yesterday when we appeared before the commission, we proved that indeed the negotiations ended, and we were able to produce documents in support of that. The negotiations ended, and that is never true that we broke away from ongoing negotiations. And the commission action illegal. I'm surprised people are still going about creating impression that the commission made a specific pronouncement that our action was illegal. Indeed, we cannot go for what the commission said. And I believe on Monday by now, people who are insisting that the commission said that the action was illegal will be eating their humble pie. What is the commission? Let's even do this simple logic. In the commission, the salaries have to be reinstated. The member salaries that have been illegitimately chosen have to be reinstated. And you tell people that the commission says the action was illegal. How can the same commission team or acting illegal and ask that the salary be reinstated? Are you saying that the commission is there to fund illegality? We are weakened. By Monday, I believe you will according to them and get to know what the way forward is. For us, now, our focus is to find solution to the impasse. And we are prepared to cooperate with the National Labour Commission so that justice will be served on us and then to pave way to have a lasting solution to what we have ourselves in.
So you are forfeiting your November salaries and endangering your December salary as well. Hello, can you hear me?
Hello.
Yes, I'm saying that you don't have your November salary, and so continuing the action means you are putting your December salary also in danger.
Sorry, I don't know. I can't I'm straining.
Yes.
I cannot hear.
All right. Maybe we will have to continue this interview some other time. We will have to continue this some other time. Thank you very much, Prince Obinhima, CTAC President, for speaking to us on government's latest action, closing down the colleges of education, 46 of them across the country, following the indefinite strike of the lecturers of the colleges of education. Thank you so much for speaking to us. This is The Big Issue, coming to you live from our studios at number 11, Dr. Martin Lupin at Dabraka in Accra. We are also live on City TV around the globe. We are citynewsroom.com. I will return, introduce my guests, and then we'll delve into the discussions proper. Don't go away.
Quero ver todo mundo balançando. Ninguém pode ficar parado. É só loucura.
Catch the premiere of Selorm Adonoo on Wednesday, 5th December 2018 at 10 p.m. Only on City TV.
Oi, 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 oi. Vem pra quebrar. Com tudo vamos dançar. Com tudo. Oi, oi, oi. Oi, oi, oi.
Live music, interviews, poetry, and more with your favorite personalities. Be our guest on Saturdays from 2 to 4 p.m. for the most exciting moments on TV. Join Kojo Akoto Boateng for real entertainment right in your living room. Saturday Live on City TV and City 97.3
You're welcome back to The Big Issue. My guest this morning, Sydney Kisley-Hayford, member of Occupy Ghana and financial analyst. Sydney, you're welcome. I miss you so much. Nick Papu Selorm Adonoo, private legal practitioner and a member of the NDC. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Eric Chum is a spokesperson for government. Eric, you're welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you. Same here.
Franklin Kujo will join us shortly. All right, gentlemen, welcome once again to the big issue. All right, so earlier in the week, we saw and heard the NDC announce their filing fees for their presidential candidates. And Asedun Ketia, or the party, after the NEC meeting, slapped a 400,000 cedi filing fee on the candidates, plus 20,000 cedis just to pick up a form.
Yeah.
Reactions have come through, mainly from the camps of the candidates.
Yes.
Spiogabra is not very happy. Gusitano's camp is not happy. Professor Alabi's camp is shocked.
Everybody's not happy.
John Mohammed's camp says that they are, looking up to their supporters to help them raise funds to do so. So it appears that the party is on one side and the candidates are also on the other side. Let me start with you, Nick Papo. You are from the NDC.
Yes.
What, in your view, led to such a colossal figure being slapped on presidential hopefuls of your party?
I think the starting point is that this is a new executive that is going to conduct a national election. A national election that I don't think has been held on that scale before. I know the NPP did one in respect of the regional, for the presidential election, up to the regional levels. I think one center per region, if I'm not mistaken. This is the first time that we are going to the constituency levels. That's 275 constituencies. It means that each constituency would be holding the election simultaneously. And you are looking at close to 300,000 people taking part to elect the presidential candidate. So this is the largest single-day internal party elections that is going to be held. It goes with cost. The EC is going to give you its cost. And you must provide the funds for them to be able to conduct that day's elections. Now, if you, top of your head, you are going to be looking at transporting each, and remember that every branch in this election, every branch has 9 executives. All 9 executives per branch are going to be moved to a particular center to vote in the constituency. So one constituency, so for example, in Trobo constituency where I am, you would have probably, we may select the Catholic Church area, maybe. That's where we held the constituency election the last time. So all the branches in my constituency, and the electoral roll there had close to, I believe we had close to maybe 40,000 people voting or more. So you have all those, that amount moving into that. And for some places, if you look at Wager, for example, you have huge swath of branches. So number one, you have to transport every executive to the center to vote. Number two, you have to print ballot papers for everyone to have the opportunity to vote. You now have to look for security. You have to look for, take care of the electoral persons that are going to be there. You have to print the material. So there's a budget that goes with such an activity. Now, I think the problem has been I think there's been a lack of a conversation between the contestants and the executive. I think the executives have taken a decision and have put a price tag on the election, and in their wisdom, they have sought to divide the cost as between the candidates who are primarily going to be the ones who are going to be benefiting from the exercise, and so you would agree that they would bear a chunk of the cost, as against the party itself also funding the cost of the election. Now that's where the debate is: who funds who bears the larger cost of the funding. Remember, we have little time because we had to do a constitutional amendment. We were supposed to have done this election on the 7th of December. By 7th of December. And we strategically want to get it out of the way so that we'll have at least 2 years of campaign to run. And we have all agreed that the bouncing of people to one venue like what we saw at the trade fair, is no longer going to be possible in respect of decentralizing the issue of the numbers and all. So you have the issue of cost and who to pay for it. There's not going to be a winner in such a debate. So I would urge a conversation. I think that if we had a conversation internally, perhaps before the result, the prize was announced, maybe we would have been able to resolve some of these public, debates that have ensued between
but normally,
the contestants.
What is done in the past? Have candidates been consulted before coming up with figures like this? Even in the recent National Delegates Congress, I mean, the elections of the
parties have a way of internally resolving some of these issues. Sometimes they will call the contestants in to a meeting and say that, look, maybe there's a deficit in terms of we planned. Maybe we had a plan for the election. We have a sort of deficit. Can you contribute amongst yourselves? It happens, and then they will do so. I think in this time around, maybe if the timetable had been announced and the figure, they call all of them and try to, talk to them and first give them an idea of why they are coming up with this, and then engage them in a conversation before officially coming out. Maybe some of these gray scores may not have happened. But it's a debate, and it's healthy. It's a healthy debate. I think that everyone is trying to respect the structures of the party. I know for a fact that those who disagree with the quantum have officially written to the Council of Elders to...
Oh, they've written already?
Yes, some of them have written to the Council of Elders to intervene in the matter. And I'm sure the Council of... That's why you have those structures, so that when you are dissatisfied with some of the decisions of the executive, you go to them, they would call the executives will also give their opinion and the reason why. But I think that you can't say anyone is wrong, because the executives have given good reason why they have to do what they have to do. They haven't inherited any, I doubt whether they inherited anything substantial from their coffers, especially after running the last national election, which was a major, we've run the branch elections, we've run the regional elections, we've run the national elections. So already the party has spent a bit of money, you understand. So someone has to bear the cost of this election. And if the ultimate beneficiaries are going to be the presidential candidates, they will bear a quantum of the amount. But their point also is that it should not, those who are complaining basically on the fact that the impression should not be put out there that the election is for the highest bidder.
Exactly the point.
I think that is also a very legitimate concern, because other than that, what happens is, even if you have a good material, who may be a good presidential material for the party, simply because he doesn't have the money, and there's nowhere in the constitution that has made it a requirement for money to be the basis upon which, or the capacity to pay.
But the argument from...
No, let me finish that constitutional point. The constitution is very clear about the fact that parties must be run on democratic principles. And the qualifications for presidential candidates has been laid out in the constitution. If a person does not have 420, remember, these are ex-ministers, ex-presidents, their salaries are ascertainable. So if someone's... Yes, they are, in terms of, if I'm...
we know how much the president earns.
Yes, we know how much the president earns. We know how much the minister earns.
We know that.
Yes, we know how much...
Yes, you do. It's public knowledge.
It's public knowledge. You know how much an ex-minister earns. So if the ex-minister says, look, I have a salary...
Ex-minister, we don't know how much he earns. Because he may be doing private business.
No, as a minister...
we know how much a minister earns.
That ex-minister earns. I'm talking about when you are in opposition. So if I was an ex-minister, you would have known my salary. Yes. At the time I was exiting.
Okay.
So if I've exited office and my salary was this, and I tell you that beyond this one and my ex gratia, I may not be in any other active employment, does that mean that I do not qualify as a member of the party to stand?
I still think it's point, or the National Executive Committee's point is that to be able to be flag bearer or president,
that's what I'm looking at the legal. I'm looking at the legal.
Okay, you should be able to raise funds. I think yes, the legal we agree.
No, so. The point is, if you stretch that, that's what I'm saying, that there must be a conversation, because everybody has a point. That's what I'm saying. If in terms of legal qualification to run as a presidential candidate, you cannot use or you cannot impose a punitive amount to deter someone from...
That is if you think this is punitive.
Oh yes, of course. Then the person then will go to court and tell the court that, look, this is my last income as a public person, and if I am eligible per the party constitution, per the national constitution, I cannot be disqualified from running simply because a party has imposed an amount which cannot be, which in all reasonableness, I cannot pay because my source of income legitimately could not raise that money.
But shouldn't it be part of the criteria? Not legal though, but there are basic requirements.
Yes, but
so if you want to pick a form, pay for.
Yes, if I pick a form 2,000, if you pick a form of 2,000 cedis or 20,000 cedis.
What kind of form is it?
Oh yes, well let's say that part of the fundraising 20,000 cedis, but then to file, you are asking me to pay 420,000 cedis.
That's a minimum requirement,
and that is your minimum requirement, and that's what I'm saying, that if you push the issue, somebody could go to court and say, this was my last income that I was earning. I cannot, in all reasonableness, be expected to be able to pay 420,000. And therefore, what you are doing is against the national constitution because it is not in sync with the constitutional provision of allowing me to contest. And you are interfering with my right to contest for party position.
That's an interesting position.
That's what I'm saying, that if that's why you must engage in the conversation to try and resolve this matter internally, so as not to push people who, in desperation, will resort to the court for remedy. And that is their right. Because we are talking about a human right.
Everybody can go to court.
Liverpool is already in court.
No. See, so I'm just saying that.
Who is your client?
I'm just advocating that there must be a conversation between the executive and the contestants. Everyone seems to have a point that the national executive have a point that, look, we need to be able to run this election. Somebody has to pay for it. We've come out with a proposal. Some persons say, look, this amount is a bit high. There must be a way of these parties being able to converse and coming to a resolution. I am hoping, and I know that internally, arrangements or actions are being taken to use the internal party structures to resolve any disagreements that anyone will have. And I think that is healthy. But I'm saying that beyond that, we should always try to have a conversation around such issues so as not to push people to go to use the courts as the option of last resolve. And you remember, if anybody should do that, it will delay the process. So that's what
that'll be interesting.
Yes,
that really will be interesting.
Well, to some extent, but I'm praying that they would be able to resolve this matter amicably.
All right, I'll later come back to you on what you think will be just fine. How much you think can be good for them to pay, so that both sides will benefit. But Eric, sitting outside of the NDC and watching, this certainly should come to you as an interesting development.
Well, good morning once again. Good morning to yourself, to Sydney, and to me. It happens that he actually resides in one of my constituencies.
Oh, really?
I've lived in Trouble for the last
that's nice.
32 years.
Oh, okay.
Tantra Hills.
Oh, okay.
It's quite interesting. We just we haven't met before.
So you still live there? Or now
I don't live there.
You moved on.
No,
he's moved on to
my constituency is
Legon.
My constituency is Fantiakwa South, and I come from a small village called Abumpe.
I smell MP. I smell MP.
I come from a small village called Abumpe. That's my constituency. But Trouble still happens to be because I've lived there for the last since I was about 10 or so.
Oh, okay.
Well, I don't feel sorry for the NDC at all. And if it wasn't because I'm a consummate Democrat, I would have wished that it actually gets worse for them. But you see, you need an opposition to make our fledgling democracy thrive. I feel absolutely not an ounce of sympathy for them. Just because they have been almost like a toxic mix of decide, propaganda, and double standards. And the chickens have come home to roost. Now, if you cast your mind back to 2007, and the kind of things that their present General Secretary said about the MPP, and then the plethora of examples and excuses that me is sitting here giving in terms of we need to run an election, we are supposed to provide security, we are supposed to, so the MPP did not have to run an election.
They were in government.
They did not have to.
They were in government.
Please, I was extremely quiet.
You're allowed to speak. Please.
So we didn't have to do any of these things.
But in 2007, NDC didn't question the filing fee.
I am just making a point.
Okay.
You see, because you see, this our politics has to be anchored in some kind of values and principles. We can't keep doing the same thing over and over again. And I think that sometimes, especially you on the opposite, in terms of the neutral side, should be able to scrutinize them a little bit more and ask questions. Because you see, when somebody says something and it's on public record, and then they turn around after a couple of years or months or so, and then come up with another reason just because it's now expedient for them, we need to question them. Let me tell you something. This is not the only thing that is actually going to hinder what is really a battle for the soul of the NDC. You remember the recent national executive elections where there's now a cry for the fact that people from the Volta region are not represented at the executive level and all of those things.
But that is not factual.
No, but I didn't say that. I didn't say that. It came from them. And I'm saying that. You see, now it goes back to the point that we keep making all the time, that sometimes you have to be extremely careful. Now today, they have had to go back and ask for a whooping 420,000 Ghana cedis. In the old Ghana cedis, that was 4.2 billion Ghana cedis. To get people to contest for what? Flag bearer? Now, I'm quite surprised that a party that was able to build a party office just a few years ago for $20 million or $25 million or so now cannot find money to run. I'm just saying. I mean, at the point, we didn't even know who owned the building to start with. You're in this country.
But
now, all of a sudden,
do we know who owns the building now?
We don't even know. But the thing is that what I'm saying is that now cannot find the resources to be able to run an election. And then if you listen to some of them, and then they clamor for a particular candidate to win, then this whole assertion that we need to take this money so that we'll be able to run the elections is neither here nor there anyway, because there's a groundswell and a clamor and all the machinations that you can find.
A clamor groundswell from the grassroots, you mean?
No, well, wherever, with the executives and all of this things, for a particular candidate to be given a free right to win, to start with. So even this whole argument that the monies are essentially going to be used to run the election in itself is neither here nor there. It's essentially the battle for the soul of the party. And you can listen to a number of the people who have actually expressed disquiet regarding the happenings in the NDC. This was a party that was meant to be the most united political party in the face of this earth, or probably in Africa. And look at the things that's happening there. So I feel absolutely...
But the fact that General Secretary of the National Executive Committee announces figures and certain elements in the party do not agree, I mean, that is not a sign of disunity.
I'm developing a point. And then they even went on to do the most ridiculous thing to claim that in the last NPP primaries, we actually pegged our filing fees at 500,000 Ghana cedis, which was a falsehood. We charged 10,000 cedis for you to pick up a nomination form and 75,000 cedis to file. That's 85,000 Ghana cedis. Yes. How can 85,000 Ghana cedis turn into 500,000 cedis? Again, it was an attempt by the NDC, by the same General Secretary, to put that out there to justify this outrageous amount of money, asking individuals. There are individuals who are contesting, who are actually asking that. The moment people go out there and file, maybe they should be invited by Yoko. Then, I mean, I'm like, there's all sorts of ridiculous things happening in this era. But the point is that we, as a political party, will not be interested in what happens internally within the NDC. And we would not really be so much interested in who becomes a flag bearer also. Because, of course, in the final analysis, you expect that they behave as a responsible opposition. They put their house in order and they're able to put government on its toes or whatever. But the truth of the matter is that we need to be able to interrogate some of these things. Especially, and sometimes when we talk about these things, then the it becomes almost like a cliche and says that, oh, we are trying to equalize. But there's absolutely no comparison. You cannot compare 85,000 Ghana cedis to 420.
Well, I spoke to Akamba on that score. I spoke to Akamba yesterday, and his point is that, you know, cost of living has skyrocketed.
Yeah.
So, you know, and he made the argument of fuel, for example. So you'll be, like Ni said, you'll be transporting people from one place to a center to vote, maybe on constituency level or regional. Cost of fuel itself is gone up. It's gone through the roof over the last couple of years. And putting everything together, you can't actually expect it to be the same.
It's not my nature to respond personally to people like Akamba and Co.
But Akamba is a national organizer.
Yeah,
but
the point is that is a very ridiculous excuse to start with. It is, because if that is the case, then why don't they peg it at 1 million Ghana cedis or 2 million Ghana cedis? No, but 420,000 is not excessive. It is excessive. Now, if that is the case, in itself, logically, how are they able to go and find 420,000 Ghana cedis in an era where they claim that it's so hard and difficult? How are they able to do so? And the same people that now they are even running a certain facade and attempt to actually create an impression that they are going out there to actually ask people to contribute to. Come on. That is pure gimmicks. But in any case, the figure itself is outrageous. The excuse that because the number of ballot papers that needs to be printed is the reason why, and that is security and all of those things. For me, it's ridiculous and it's outrageous. We need to interrogate and see when people make a correlation between the amount of money that they are asking these individuals to pay and an investigation to find out how actually they're able to pay these monies and to be able to. One of the aspirants actually wanted the aspirants to actually show their tax returns if they are able to come up and pay for it.
No, you see,
these are legitimate
concerns that are being expressed. It's as if they are paying from their pockets.
Yes.
They said as a candidate, you should be able to raise funds. You should have the network to be able to raise funds. You get me? So showing tax returns maybe.
But the point is that I'm touching on the point that was made by Akamba.
Okay.
So the same people who are so much affected by harsh economic conditions are being asked to contribute to candidates who are going to become flag bearers. And the party uses those conditions as a justification to ask them to pay 420,000 Ghana cedis.
Very well.
Yes, I just want to two quick
very
points.
quickly, yes.
Number one, this is a party. I get really surprised when they even want to be involved in this conversation. This is a party that was able to pay every delegate from the individual pockets of candidates. What is it? 2,500? I think it's even less, or 5,000 cedis per delegate at their last Congress.
You know that for a fact?
This was a fact. This was something that the National Secretary came out to announce.
Now you've gone into conjecture and speculation.
The amount I would not be. I need to go back.
Because I didn't hear him confirm it.
Oh, that as in each delegate was
it is not true. I was in Koforidua and it is not true. And if you can find evidence that anybody paid anybody, yes,
don't worry. I'll give you the statement that he confirmed.
So that,
and so that is your justification to this matter.
No, he's not. I'm happy he is now trying to wriggle his way out of the fact that the candidates bore the cost of each delegate.
And I'm asking you, nobody has asked them to display
where they raised the money or how they got the money to pay for 275 buses. That one too was not. It's not something.
That shouldn't be your justification.
No. The point I'm making is this. I've seen some of the candidates try to say that, look, let's try and raise 1 cedi from every delegate or from the general public. So if you believe in my message, send 1 cedi to any of the platforms that they've displayed. That's an innovative way of trying to raise
money. I've seen only John Mohammed's platform.
Other candidates have also done same. I think Joshua Labitu has. I've seen some of they've started. You understand? That's why I said there must be a conversation. And it starts when one party makes a move. the national executive have deliberated at a national level. They have come out with the reasons why they want this to be done the way they've done it. The candidates have also expressed an opinion. So they've also decided to use party structure to try and see whether they can get an appeal to bring the amount down.
But one would wonder what will go through the minds of the National Executive Committee to slap such a figure.
It's an
attempt to basically stop some people from actually filing and all of this, and increase an unlevel playing field for some people to pass through.
This is the first time that you are having a national election on the scale that we are going to have it.
So what if you had just one candidate? What if you had just had one candidate?
Listen, you've never even run.
What if you have just had one candidate? How are you going to fund it?
Where you've had people seeking to run an election to decentralize this issue.
So how about if this quote unquote prohibitive figure, I mean the guys are unable to pay, maybe one or two are able to pay, will this money be enough to then run the election? Because
I think that the collective wisdom, you see, I will not sit here and question the collective wisdom of my national executive committee. They have come out with reasons. They gave reasons. Some of the reasons is that you should be able to show capacity to raise funding. So you must be innovative. We are in an IT time or in an IT age. If you can get 400,000 people to follow you on Facebook, you cannot seek to get them to one CD from every one of them.
Some of these people are Erichu and Co.
Following for strategic reasons. But the point is this, and if
I don't follow them.
Truth,
I don't.
It also raises a national debate about how we fund our political activities.
We'll get to that.
And I think that it's about time we also have this conversation.
has some financial engineering ideas
to help
the NDC. Obviously, interesting. We've seen John Mohammed's platform, star 713 star 2020 star amount hash to fund GM 2020 campaign, and this we hear is being powered by MPs for GM. It appears that slapping such a huge figure on the people is now forcing them to be innovative, getting them to secrete what we call their creative juices in order to be able to raise the figure, which is good for the party and generally good for our country in an era where we are talking about political party funding. What is your take on this?
If that is the issue, why are they not voting by electronic means?
No, it's a trust. I mean, it's a whole matter on its own.
It's a whole matter different.
Yes,
No, but this is. I'm sorry, I don't want to be insulting, but frankly, Nick Bapu has raised a few issues, which I would like to look at frontally. Number one, somewhere in his delivery, he said that they don't know how much money is in the coffers, which they should have available for.
No, he said he is not sure, but he's thinking that having run a series of elections, constituency, regional, and national, branch, etc. I mean, certainly that, no matter how much it was there, that should be depleted.
So the previous executive, because they now have a new executive, right?
Yes.
They have a new executive now. So presumably, somebody has handed over some notes and the financial position to the new executives. And if they haven't, why haven't they done so?
They would have had their first meeting. They would definitely have.
But if that has been done and the money in the coffers justifiably is not enough, they must find ways of raising money.
Are you a political party if you don't even have 1 million CDs in your coffers?
That situation, people have sold their father's houses to rent.
We need to ask these questions, because a lot of these things are being done on some phantom premises. Political parties are expected to file their annual returns. It's a requirement. It's a requirement, but they are not doing it. Okay, and I don't know. Somebody took the case to court. Franklin, do you remember? Was it a case filed?
2016 election.
So you're reading from a online portal and showing it to me.
Yeah, someone took the case to court. But
I'm not sure whether it has actually.
It didn't get the last of it. The election is supposed to ensure.
I think Charlotte Osei was trying to enforce something like that, but we don't know.
She was sued. The EC was sued. The EC was sued
for failing to demand from the
parties.
Okay.
All right. And the parties are not. they are not disclosing. This is not just the NDC. I think it's the MPP as well, and of course including the APC and the PPP, whoever and the other supposedly political parties that we don't. I think the only party that filed at the time was the PPP.
The PPP, yes.
All right, together with disclosing his tax returns and the party's tax returns and etc. etc. So when they sit back now and tell us that they don't know how much money they have, and this is an attempt to be able to raise enough money to fund the campaign, it doesn't sound sensible. You see, because you can't only just sit down and say we are raising enough money to be able to do the presidential nomination. They are saying categorically that they want to raise 680,000 cedis. If you do the arithmetic, 20,000 times 11, 400,000 times 11, you add it together, you get 680,000 cedis.
No, even two people. What two people will pay should be more than that.
No,
420 by 2 is 840.
400. Sorry. You're getting 6.8 million to be able to get this thing, this job done. If that is what it is going to cost, I would have thought that some IT guru.
Let me just add that Spio's own is *713 *9867 the amount then hash. So Spio's own is *713 *9867 you put in your amount, then your hash.
You see,
but
you see,
no, it's not that bad. It's
providing information.
They have providing information.
In the realms of
yes.
But what is so innovative about that? You can't even remember that. I mean, when you
9867.
The most important thing with putting hashtags and things up is to make it easy for people to remember. All right, so that if I'm a Spio person and I know the code, I should be able to see you in the street somewhere and say, Charlie, fasika to Spio account number *800 240 hash.
So *713
and they don't control the
1967.
They don't control the code.
It's the operator. The operator that gives you the code.
Yeah, but you have to tell the operator.
Appear quite simple.
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah, but what they got was *713.
Okay.
Yeah, but you are paying the person.
*713 2020. You are paying
*713
*9867 amount hash.
People don't defend it. It's a ridiculous code. I mean, it's totally unrememberable. You can't memorize
but
this.
It's on Facebook, so you see it and then you do go
ahead. And the WhatsApp groups will be.
Yeah, you know what they're saying? They're saying that you do it and then you screenshot it and show that you've contributed.
You see the ridiculousness of all.
No, as in you put it out there so that people know that you are trying to also support your candidate. So you just put one CD. It's just one CD. You just put one CD and then you do it. So you can all do it. I mean, one CD is two. I'm sure my friend here will even do one for.
You see,
one CD. Supporting democracy.
It is fundamental IT ignorance that you should do something like that. You want to make things easy. The interface has to be so user friendly, all right, that people will just wake up in the middle of the night and say, "Hey, I haven't sent my money to Spio." And in the middle of that night, they should be able to remember and send it straight away.
But
now you're going to sit down and go and do *713 *713428794 hash.
Nobody's going to send Sydney. Nobody's going to send any money.
They are campaigning on it too.
Yeah, but it's a political gimmickry.
You send it one CD and then you send it.
Political gimmickry.
Nobody's
going to send
at the end of the day.
When you put
scratch card and things.
We had a national campaign that had the mobile money as a basis for raising funds for the campaign.
For your candidate?
No, not during a flag bearership contest.
Oh, so they are not allowed to raise funds?
No, I'm saying that, but you're comparing apples with oranges. You're comparing different things.
This is a new era.
But we had, and we still do, even up to today, I get deducted 1 cedi every month.
Yes.
Through my, it's a contribution to the party.
But
I'm saying, it's totally different from what you're trying to do, where individual candidates,
but you can choose to give the person.
Yes.
It's not my fault.
He said we are doing the same, and I said it's totally different.
No, just raising the funds.
Raising the funds. So give us 1 cedi to help us raise funds.
And the
if all of us do 1 cedi each for all the candidates. Give us 1 cedi.
I'm not. I can't even make the point because
1 cedi asking to who?
To all the candidates.
So 1
No, only 2 of them have done it so far. Mahama has done it.
They are 30, so they may all do it. So 1 cedi by 30, that's 13 cedis.
Exactly.
That's price of money.
you see, Selorm, you see, here's the issue. You see, somebody's making a mistake somewhere, or he's giving the wrong impression that this money that is being raised is going to be directly applicable to the actual voting. All right, so that the money to be raised has got to be directly applied to this, but that cannot be true, because the party needs more money to do other things else.
Contribute right now.
All right.
Then I'll put it out.
So this party funding, this party funding is going to do a little bit more than just that. However, if they had sat down and realized, and they should have, that they were going to actually do this presidential election, and they realized it was going to cost them 6 point something, and now I've made a mistake on the calculation earlier. I'm finding it difficult to remember what the figure should be. I think it should be 4.68 million.
No, if there are 10 people, that will be 4.2.
If there are 10 people, it will be 4.2, but there are 11 people. So 11 times 4.2 is 46. So it's about 4,620,000, something like that. So,
and if you really want to have a private meeting with the candidates, you can. You can call 055.
Why are you allowing me to hijack this
program? We send a private meeting with the candidates.
They should have known, and if they were serious, all right, and were determined to move one step further into a modern era, somebody could have created a simple application, all right, and they could have used that application to do their voting. They don't need to bus people all the way to one particular point in any region or any branch. You see where I'm coming from? They don't need to do that, and they could have saved themselves a lot of money, all right, and all the brouhaha. At the end of the day, however, whether the NDC wants to use 420,000 or 500,000 is not my business. Okay?
But a stakeholder in our democratic
Who is the stakeholder?
A citizen.
We are asking individuals to put money down if they want to contest. What stakeholder else is there again?
No, but you should be concerned, especially as there's been discussions about party funding and the fact that our electoral processes are too costly and what that means for corruption. You should be concerned as a citizen.
If you extend it into the corruption angle, then yes, I am concerned as a citizen. But again, this is a private club. All right? It's a group of people with like-minded views who have decided they are going to come and do politics. It is entirely up to them. All right? As for the corruption, we are going to have to fight that corruption issue irrespective of what they raise. Whether they use, you see, I just think that 20,000 cedis, all right, if you think about it, just to pick up a form, 20,000 cedis for the form, I think that is outrageous. It would have been better for them to have said 5 cedis for the form, 415 cedis for the candidature. That would have made a lot more sense. But to charge 20,000 CDs for what kind of paper are you using?
It's not about the paper.
What is it about?
It's about the what the paper stands for. The value of what the
paper doesn't stand for anything. It doesn't stand for anything. We all know who Mahama is. We know who Spiel is. We know who Guzi is. Frankly, all we should have done is to say, okay, so Guzi, you want to run, put in your name, your address, your GPS code, your TIN number.
All right. You actually receive a receipt when you
and then you go and do you go and indicate that you want to do this. The most important thing is that you can pay your 400,000 CDs in order to demonstrate your ability to be able to to raise funds. So the whole thing for me is a farce. It could have been done a lot more in a far more modern way, more technologically astute, and go for. This tells you honestly that if we are not careful and we have a political party like that has known all the time that it would be electing a presidential nominee in December and has not even sat down to plan how they are going to be able to minimize their costs, all right, then we should be questioning at the end of the day whether or not a party like that is going to come and sit in government and to be able to be cost conscious and ensure that we don't go and overspend as we are going forward. It's ridiculous.
Very well. Frankly, to be a presidential candidate means you're going to be leading the party and leading the party's efforts on many fronts. And we know how expensive our politics is. You have to buy aprons, you have to buy a lot of things and distribute to the people. Shouldn't this be a demonstration of the candidate's ability to raise funds and be a show of his network on the ground?
Well, presumably once you put yourself up as a candidate, you must have some demonstrable evidence that you are liked, or you do have a following. You know, I've heard some of the candidates say they'll shock certain persons, and you look at that candidate and you realize that even his own household, I'm not sure, his own household would even vote for him. So, naturally, the question you asked would have meant that by the sheer nature of the persona, you're an embodiment of some likeness, if you like, or being loved. So presumably you'll be able to raise money. But you see, the conversation here, and taking a cue from Sydney, ordinarily, it shouldn't bother us. I mean, I'm certainly not going to contribute any money to that to anybody.
Even if you believe in somebody's cause.
No, because I don't.
713 hash. No, it's fascinating.
Because
I'm looking for money to.
He's trying to.
Yes, I just told him I made my
social costs. If I expect them to contribute to my costs, so by saying that I'm not going to contribute, it's not to say that I don't like any of them or what they are doing. I'm just saying that. I'm not too sure that.
But frankly, if
can you drop that? Let me just go ahead and say what I wanted to say. So, ordinarily, we shouldn't really be concerned. But you see, because of the nature of our politics, where we have monetized it, it is important that these questions come up. Because not too long ago, I think CDD it was. Some guys did some work on the cost of our elections, and they traced that of the MPs and all of that. To the extent that even MPs complain that by the sheer nature of their involvement in politics, they have to do certain things in order to stay alive, even beyond getting into parliament. So there's that conversation that ought to be had. Now, you flip it the other way, and then you have a party that says that, look, we were sitting at somewhere when you people said you ran for elections. First of all, there's a party machinery that is supposed to ensure that these elections are held smoothly. But they don't have the money. Something that ought to be questioned as well. Because if you're a party that believes in your people and you have a following of at least 5 million people, so that's what the two major parties boast, by the way. If are not that they boast, we see
that's
the numbers
they have, yes.
and all of that.
So
presumably the first important thing would have been, well, while you were in power, you probably, through your policies, you helped me, I managed to do certain things. So I should be willing to support the party itself. The party needs to explore those avenues. Of course, the point I'm making really is that if during your tenure, your policies inure to the benefit of certain persons, however small or large, it presupposes that they still have faith in the party. The party structures should be working towards that and creating that sustainable path to some level of independence. But to suggest that, well, look, we are going to run A, B, C, D, and we need money, it makes it sound as if it's a bit extortionist. But it's the lack of the party's structured ways of raising funding that has been responsible for this. But let's also not discount the technology appealing factor in all these as well, because the candidates, as the proposed candidate has realized, can actually use technology to raise sympathy, court sympathy. In spite of saying that they are disabled. I don't know what that meant, whether they are disabled financially.
The comment was in context.
It's in context, yeah. But I see some positives in some of the candidates trying to go to the public and say, well, while we are complaining, we are still raising money to do this. For me, if the money is going to be raised and used for a proper contest, where the candidates are asked questions as to how they are going to prosecute the agenda for the country, right? That sort of support, that sort of reason seems to be a bit, probably sensible. But the whole argument, the whole point we are making really is that, one, if you start setting these type of sums as using this as yesterday, we don't know where next you go. Maybe 1 billion, and then what happens afterwards? So maybe this should be a learning curve to the NDC. That look, you cannot say that because you are running we're going to run an election for candidates who have to tour the entire country, and you as a party has to be there to monitor compliance to party codes and all of that. So you need money. First of all, raise money through your own party, your own party members, and secondly, if you are suggesting that this shows the fundraising prowess of candidates, I don't think that should be a particular. I find that justification a bit ridiculous, really, to say that the 420 has been set. So this shows that. So what happens if somebody raises much more and the person is not thoroughly a worthy candidate? So what happens? So it shows that the person is able to.
It doesn't mean if you raise it, you become the automatic flag bearer. So that's the beginning.
That's why it shouldn't even be a moniker, because the point really is that to suggest that once you say you want to be a candidate, you should be able to raise funding. I mean, this is not going to organize a miracle service somewhere and say people contribute to the service.
Frankly, so I mean, interesting point you're raising. Should this reopen the discussion on state funding of political parties?
Please, no.
Why no?
That state funding business, we should never ever entertain it. Because if you do, I'll set up a party. Look for people.
No, but your party must meet.
No, yeah, but I can easily do that. You see, the challenge is, don't forget, a country like Mali, not too long ago, I think there were 400 parties contesting elections. You know what that presents? Because they're able to meet. And it will create a lot of business. People become members of multiple political parties. Wasn't it the last election?
You have to have a certain amount of votes.
Wasn't the last election? The last election exposed some of these things, where some people were members of a particular campaign. And these things keep happening. Please, no. The state should never ever. We should. In fact, some of my colleagues in civil society believe the state should do that. I think it is a
because if the state does that, then the pressure on parties to raise money using whatever means possible may reduce.
Let's use the analogy. Let's use the analogy of
who has sent you to go and do politics?
No, but it's important for our democratic process.
And if you, whether you fund it or you don't fund it, people will still form political parties.
But you want the best materials. You don't want money to become, an impediment to the best materials.
Well, let's use the analogy of a syndicate here. I mean, let's flip the analogy of a syndicate here. Says that the person of the power to raise funding. I mean, one of the yardsticks should be the ability to raise funding. If you are saying that we should ensure, we should prevent people from, being influenced in order to raise money for elections, so the state should fund. Shouldn't we flip it and say the persons with the best ideas, through a certified medium, get noticed and supported through the state system? The state system can say, the state system shouldn't do that. No, the point is, we should see. We are able to tell that candidates who put themselves out for elections are making sensible promises, and through that, people can then gravitate towards them and support them. The state should never, ever try to say that we are funding political parties. Otherwise, look, even now that we are not funding political parties, there are a number of jokers on the scene. You know what that will portend? By the way,
but
the filing fee.
Too, Franklin, what we have to bear in mind, at the moment, is that the jury is still out as to whether the kind of capitalist mechanism that prevails in the West and particularly with the US, the UK, is better than the Chinese model, which is now becoming, should I say, known, because the Chinese are opening up a lot more about their practice, which is to select persons, train them, groom them, watch them, get them ready for leadership, and put them in place without necessarily having open democratic system.
No, but Sydney, we've gone past that stage.
We've gone past that stage, but there's a country that is sitting there that is proving to you that what you are doing is not the best.
The issue to do with funding, it's not necessarily funding political parties, for instance, to go out there and campaign, but I think that the call has been made in issues to do with having programmatic political parties where you support with policy, research, and all of those things. That call has been made.
Should be doing those.
Yes.
But NCC too is not.
But there's also we should fund NCC. We are funding NCC.
I think that we want the political conversation when it comes to the funding of political parties. It's ridiculous.
You have a point.
Yeah, it's ridiculous for anybody to even suggest that the state should put money in political parties to go and out there and campaign.
Yeah, but there are certain things that you require for a political party to be able to do. But Eric, there's a country now that was considered a developing country, all right, a third world country, that is now becoming a superpower, all right? And the model that they are using is proving
it's a one-party state.
It's a one-party state.
And maybe a one-party state is the way to
go. Actually, should be done within political parties,
for us to be able to have
so that they get
persons who will be developed. Actually, man, the secretariat.
Wait. I need to say something.
No, but that is the composition and how political parties are actually structured. It's just challenge. So I have had experience from elsewhere where the political party itself is man outside of the politicians.
And your conduct in terms of contributing to the national policy dialogue would require support from the states. We see that in Germany.
Yes.
The challenge here, though, is that if we go on that path, we'll create career politicians. And that's
but we have career politicians already.
No, but I'm saying that it will create it to become an employment zone. But what it means is that people will say that we are coming out with this policy, so we need money to be supported. But on the filing fee,
and then we can have MSc in politics.
Sydney, isn't it the case that procurement, when you are going to procure something for the tender board, you have to pay some money and not refundable money?
So
maybe they are taking the key from that.
That's the fee. All right, James Afedi tweets at me and says, let's be transparent. The list of contributors should be made public for all Ghanaians. they can't throw dust into our eyes. Hashtag the big issue.
But the Ministry of Communication was to monitor mobile money contribution.
To what need is
the Ministry of Communication was to monitor mobile contribution. So it's possibly easy.
Okay, it's very easy. So
it's a private matter. It's a private matter.
It's a private matter. It shouldn't even be.
It should be.
No, talking about transparency, this is a political party. Okay, maybe somebody will contribute, but all they want is name out there, right?
Yeah.
So yes. 420,000 CDs, and yet they will tell you Ghana is hard. Very pathetic. And to add insult to injury, they want us to contribute the small we have again. How can a broke man pay? Why do they want to compound problems for Ghanaians? NDC is very heartless.
So is he an NDC man?
They're very upset.
Is he an NDC man?
Extremely Thinking about did he say the candidates are the ultimate beneficiaries of the election, so should pay more? Can he please also explain more on the benefits? That's for you. Social Democrat, 420,000 for a flag bearer aspirant.
They say it's not poverty.
So the economy is robust after all. The colossal amount can buy a lot of ambulances. So how much does EC even charge for presidential candidates? It'll be keke. Hashtag I stand with Atubiga. Hashtag the big issue. Selorm, assuming without admitting that only one candidate files due to the high fee, can the NDC run a national election on just 420,000 CDs budget? The reason of fees funding
if there's only one candidate, there's no need to vote.
Hashtag the big issue. No, they will still have to vote.
Why? If there's only one candidate.
Yeah, we still have to vote because the constitution requires.
Yes. So now let me start with you. You know, the parties. I mean, moving it forward about for how the parties can raise funds. In certain situations, you have parties owning businesses, you know, assets, generating money for them. Is this something we can learn and replicate in our country? Because in Ghana, people don't just donate to political parties because they believe in the party. They do so because they expect something in return. So if you're a candidate, for example, and I give you money, I'm giving you the money because I want something in return, not because I believe in your cause. How can we move this forward? Should we get to a place where we start having discussions about parties owning businesses, you know, assets, which will be generating money for them on monthly basis, weekly basis, so these monies can be used to fund the activities of the parties?
It would be more sensible if they invested in churches.
Well, I think that is a conversation that needs to be had. And if we had a system where the Electoral Commission, for instance, would be able to, like what pertains in the US, for instance, where even campaign funding has to be audited, and you would have to be able to find out exactly what it was used for and who contributed what, then that would limit the amount of things that the political party can do. Unfortunately, on our side of the world, it's extremely difficult, or it would be extremely difficult to be able to do that. For instance, in a recent Brexit, where it turned out that the Leave campaign actually spent more than they were meant to spend, where they're given a certain cap and they overspend by £2 million or so, and some of the people have actually been taken to court and they've been investigated and all of those things. Because once you leave almost like a carte blanche where you can do whatever you want and people can contribute regardless of the fact that they are either local or indigenous or they are foreigners, it becomes a challenge. Because I think that even within our constitution, foreigners are not meant to be.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, but I mean, we all know that it's extremely difficult to essentially police that or track that.
Oh, why?
No, but I mean, we have been.
Rollins took about just 3 million or 5 million or whatever it is.
Yes, but what I'm saying that no, listen. I mean, please come on. Let's be serious. What I'm saying is that it's important that we have that conversation surrounding how political parties are run. Because even when you look at internal elections, or MPs will tell you we're going through primaries and all of those things, there's also a certain mindset. A lot of the people believe that they are not meant to contribute to the cause in something that they believe in. and that they'll tell you in the local parlance that we're actually looking for a job for you, right? And so when they're looking for a job for you, they don't want to turn around to be the ones contributing the 5 cities and the 10 cities also to support a candidate. Maybe the political party, they might do so. So we have had this conversation in the past where even when we have issues to do with the what we call the winner takes all, as part of the policy analysis at the IE for a short period, where all the time the political parties will sit around the table and have conversations around how we'll be able to even circumvent that. And you tend to find out that when you're in opposition, you're actually for a proper conversation about how we'll be able to create a system where there's not that winner takes all thing. But once you're in government, nobody wants to do that anymore. So we have to be candid with ourselves in terms of the way we run our politics. And a certain subculture or culture where people feel that politicians are meant to find all the various ways of being the resources to be able to run campaigns, and nobody really cares. So that is a broader conversation that I feel that we should have. But in terms of actually being able to strengthen our institutions like NCC and the EC, to be able to go down to the bottom and the grassroots, to be able to essentially educate the populace and say that, listen, this is something that should not be as expensive as we made it to be. And the city made mention of the fact that we can use technology. You understand? So whilst we are able to, if you like, use all the technology that's available to us today, mobile money, all sorts of other platforms, when it comes to issues to do with elections, then we shy away from that because we feel that we can do it. It's essentially trying to create a system that people will trust, and it takes time.
It takes time. It takes education. That's where the NCCA comes in.
But democracy itself is expensive. I tell people all the time this whole idea that, I mean, there's a lot of people who would question the kind of democracy that we have and try to find other alternatives to it. And I'm like, you have to be able to prefer another alternative to what we have today. Especially when it comes to the issue to do with trust. And we've come from a certain revolutionary background and all of that. And I tell people all the time, in as much as we still have challenges with our democracy and we criticize the things that we do, to be honest with you, I look at it from a very positive standpoint. We've come a very long way. We have come a very long way. I'm sure you would come to the next topic and all of those things where, listen, there are major issues in this country that people have used the judicial process to have adjudicated.
Yes. I mean, in the past, it didn't happen. And your party should be credited for the role.
So, I feel that instead of dwelling on the negatives all the time.
So it's a half glass full perspective we must be seeing.
A lot of people, listen, we are in this country and we woke up one morning and we have lost a president, a certain president. Yeah. This is Africa.
And it was a seamless transition.
So you see, whilst we have challenges with all the basic things that we can think of and all of those things, our democracy is something that has been resilient in the last 25 years or so. It's been tested. And so in the past when people could be criticized on having random conversations at a bar or something and they will be picked up and you don't find them again, now people are bold enough to criticize government, to go to court, to seek
but that should be the normal course of things.
Yes, but in Africa, things are not very normal.
But we started opening the eyes of many African countries.
Yes.
So it shouldn't be.
So Sydney,
I'm not saying that we have gotten there yet, but we have done, we've made tremendous strides.
I'm still on the business side of things. So for example, a political party.
And your government is sitting there, you can't pass the right to information bill.
No, but I have, if you ask me my view on that.
I don't want your view.
This
is not your view. But Eric, this is not your view. This is about the governance of our country.
You've asked me a question. I'll answer.
It's the governance of our country.
Parliament has shown a certain inertia or indolence in passing the RTI bill. And I support civil society to pass it. And I've made that point. In 21 years, there's absolutely no justification not to pass it. And I don't back any of the excuses and justifications that have been given for not passing it.
Of funding.
And the president, on his very first
you have the last word.
address, made mention of the fact that there's a commitment to pass it, and this parliament, at least we have to give them the benefit of that. I've said that they'll pass it before the end of the year. So let's give them that
How
benefit
long
of
did
the
it
doubt.
take to pass the American?
But you have been in power for two terms where you have had a majority and you couldn't do it.
How long did it take to pass?
But you can ask your members of parliament. You can ask them, your members in parliament on the minority side.
One day.
Yeah,
one
but
night.
you also
You're in parliament.
No, but we are not. We are the majority.
No,
Sorry.
that is a ridiculous.
So Cindy,
That's a ridiculous excuse. You like it too. I think you ridiculous for you here too.
Oh, come on.
Cindy, I'm still trying to get from us how political parties can be self-sustaining without having to slap such huge amounts of money.
There's this story on CTFM. It was on.
Wait.
17th October 2014.
Oh, it's coming.
You have the last one.
Right.
So, for example, we
17th October 2014.
we have things like the VIP buses, pure water, etc. Can't we have certain businesses owned by political parties that will be funding them? Because I'm concerned about that. Cindy.
Credit unions are there.
I said they should go and invest in churches.
So that God will bless them all.
They'll get tithes. People will contribute to the tithes and the thing will come. No, but what else do you want them to do? If a political party, and which is what we are seeing now, all right, cannot sit down and seriously look at how it is financing itself and sustaining itself, perpetuating itself, all right? But if you go on Eric's theory, okay, that we should by now be tickling ourselves and laughing at the same time, saying we have done exceptionally well.
No, I didn't say that.
No, but he made a fair point that we've come from somewhere and it appears we're heading towards somewhere.
He's tickling himself.
No,
thinking
but
that we have done we have done incredibly well.
20, 30 years ago,
we haven't done enough.
Here espousing all these views and prophetic
20, 30 years ago, I was on the streets fighting.
Exactly, but what was the conditions? What were you fighting for?
I was fighting for what he is now tickling himself about.
So we are making progress. Are we not making that? We are making progress, isn't it?
No, you see, the danger which we face if we are not careful.
Complacency?
Yes. All right? Don't think that because...
We should be grateful for small mercies, shouldn't we?
Grateful for small mercies. I fought for it.
Yes, but people struggled and fought.
There are friends of mine who died.
Yes.
All right? A few friends of mine at the time were mistaken for
and they are still not
plotters.
seeing anything.
So what?
Yes, so we have done well.
So we should contribute.
I mean, it doesn't mean we are complacent.
We don't have an alternative.
We have made progress. We must recognize the progress we've made and still know that there is a lot of ground.
Sydney says it's not enough.
I am measuring myself.
He has a right
frankly.
to say that. I don't know how to challenge it.
I'm measuring myself against my yardstick. I'm not interested in Kagame's yardstick or in Botswana's yardstick. That is not my business. My business is me as a Ghanaian, as Sydney, sitting in this country. All right? What have I achieved and what could I have achieved had I been a little bit more astute and a little bit more progressive and a little bit more tenacious and a little bit more determined to get to where I want to go? All right? We have had a whole series of governments who have come in 4 years, 8-year terms, and we have sat down and still, at this point in time, okay, we don't have a Right to Information Act that gives us, the citizens, the right to demand how our money has been used.
And even how some of these guys will be raising the money. I mean, who are contributing to the campaigns.
Absolutely. All right? And Eric is making a point. I agree with him that we don't seem to have enough authority to be able to determine how political parties are raising their campaign funds and how they are using it. But it is in the Electoral Act. It is there. It is very, very clearly stated. Okay? So where do we come from? When the Electoral Commissioner, who is supposed to ensure that political parties file all their annual returns and their financial statements before we go into a next election period and before we go into another year, is not doing that job, how do I, as a citizen, flex my right to get this done? Okay? Parliament has been sitting on a right to information bill for nearly 20 years.
But they passed
They have not passed it.
The military agreement.
All right? They haven't passed it. As a citizen, what is my right? How can I ensure, or how can I go to court and get Parliament to actually do what it's supposed to do in order for me to get my constitutional rights and my human rights to access information that I don't have?
In fact, you have to go to court.
Yes,
to
for as
look
long as I
information.
cannot, for as long as I cannot coerce a group of people who have been elected by the people of this country to do what they should do for and on behalf of the people of this country, we haven't gotten anywhere.
But the pressure appears to be working. So they are considering.
Appears to be working is not the same as working.
Which
and it
pressure?
hasn't worked.
So
We
civil
had to
society
go
pressure.
to court. Don't forget. Occupy Ghana had to go to court in order to ensure that the Auditor General would actually go there and be able to disallow and surcharge people. Now that is in place, and we are at least beginning to see some
So that
signs
is progress.
of that.
That is
Yes,
But the point
I'm
he's
saying-
making is that it shouldn't be the norm. See, you are fighting other things. I don't want to bring other matters here, but you know
Please,
what happened.
please, yes.
Now, if there are controversial issues that come up, you need to go to court to procure a document, a contract document. I mean, these are basics. We shouldn't be fighting over these things. And so for
and
me,
be clogging the
even the
courts
challenge I
with
have is
things
that
like this.
eventually what may be given to us as RTR
Will be watered down.
will be watered down. That's the
But
fear.
Akutapa itself noticed that if the law that eventually gets passed is so watered down and diluted that it is inconsistent with what the Constitution stipulates, they will go to court to ensure that they have what they actually deserve.
And wait for another 19
And you know,
years.
if the economy were run in such a way that we were doing some stellar things, like trying to go to space, so you are procuring something.
Sky trains coming.
Well, you are trying to procure
Drones
something
to
that is
take
so.
our blood.
You are procuring toilets, roofing sheets, and then this information too you don't get. I mean, what is this?
Look, I have a case. I have a petition at Shra.
And they've still not called you.
Or the JIDA. Shra still hasn't acted. All right? And every month, I send them a letter. Every month,
they
I
should
send
have a
them a
whole file
letter.
for you there, I'm sure.
All right? Absolutely. And when I go there, they tell me my file was burnt in the fire. Yes.
So resubmit the petition.
But I think that
And I'll tell you that every month I remind them that they haven't
Yeah.
responded to my petition. Where and how do I, and you lawyers, how do I bring and should I bring a case against Shrash, insisting that they must investigate my petition, whether they like it or not?
They're a public entity.
So speak to him after this show.
No, but Selorm, just a quick one. I think that we've
So
created,
we go to me for him to finish the
for this
NDC matter.
RTI, we've created this perception that this RTI is something that is meant for political office holders.
Exactly. It
And
shouldn't be.
I'm
Yeah.
quite. I mean,
In fact, they will benefit. Everybody will benefit.
Even the politicians.
I
Because
don't
you see,
think it's actually
there's a
something
lot-
for journalists.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
there's a lot of people who do all this conjecturing and speculation, especially journalists and
true.
all that, put things out in their papers and make categorical statements about it, and that becomes an avenue for them not to have an excuse anymore. And the thing is that when people have been given positions of authority, either a civil servant, a public servant, either the police, the military, and all of those things, they are accountable to the people. Now it takes away that scrutiny or what's from everything actually going to the doorstep of the guy who is a political head. And I keep making this point. Any ministry that you go to, you won't find more than 3 or 4 individuals there who are political operatives. When you have a ministry that has technical officers, you have technocrats and things, I want to know how come we spend $1.2 million on a road and in the next 2 months
It gets damaged. It's
I
true.
want to know.
It's sad.
And it's not just purely politics. I want to understand how come
Once you drive on
we are
it,
paying
you can
the
die.
same amount of money for a road and there's no pavement, there's no covered drains, and
no
the
lights.
technocrats
There are no
go
lights.
there and
There are no
sign it
footbridges.
off. I want to know. I want
Because
to
sometimes the
understand.
technocrats are forced to
which is-
sign it by the few.
No,
political
but you see,
operatives.
that is ridiculous. That is
that's
it's
what happens.
untenable.
That's what
Which is
So
why the
that guy-
politicians should actually fast track it.
Exactly. So we need
Because-
to be able to. That's why I back.
But the politicians
civil-
who take the kickbacks usually.
No, but
I
you see-
back civil society 100%.
Very well.
And,
And
that I
everybody-
feel that
everybody.
Parliament should should do it.
Like
and
they did the
there's
military
absolutely
agreement.
no reason why it can't be done.
Let me make this point.
One night.
Let me make this point.
Quickly, we are running out of time.
Some of the let me just wrap up. You see, sometimes we say
when we
that
passed the Ameri and the car power deal. Have you forgotten that one?
Pass it in one night.
How long did it
I mean,
take?
this is so important
military
because
agreement was
one of the very interesting conversations I've had with very higher up people here, questions about why we have several numbers at certain places in government, is the sheer, not duplicity. It's just lack of trust because they can't bring the civil service to account. They just can't trust them.
Why is the breakdown?
So the point is, while they say those to us in private, it's actually behoves on them to actually pass these things quickly. So
One government comes in and takes out a set of civil servants, another comes in. That's what happens.
Anyway, that's
yes. Back to the NDC, just to conclude, and you can put everything together.
Yes.
It's expected that by 19 January.
Of these things do you have now?
Oh no. There's
No, but how many have you contributed so far? Because I see you on your phone.
I have contributed one. I've done.
And you could just one CD?
One CD.
Oh, you couldn't contribute more than one CD?
No, I couldn't contribute more. I'm a poor man. I couldn't contribute more than one CD.
You're a poor man?
I did one CD to a couple of campaigns. But my point is this.
Okay.
You see, we've had this model of one person normally being the one to be the showman, to donate, Like, for example, I have the CTFM story of 17th October 2014, where the then presidential candidate, President Nana Akufo-Addo, he donated 600,000 to finance the October 18th National Congress. And this was by his own campaign, Greater Accra campaign coordinator, who disclosed that Nana had made the donation of 600,000 cedis to make provisions to transport delegates from polling station centers on that day. That was 2014. So even in 2014, it could cost 600,000 cedis just to transport. And he was able to donate 600,000. It should tell you something that
he raised it.
He raised. If he could raise 600,000 as a presidential candidate, this is from CTFM's own website. I gave the date, 17th October 2014. You see, even worse. This should tell you that if it took 600,000 to transport delegates to a single Congress, and we are now doing what do you call it? An election, a decentralized election. But I think I take a cue from his point.
It doesn't mean that the distances are short.
No, I take a cue from his point that, look, we have evolved where we were doing one-day national congresses to elect presidential candidates. We now want even the local member to have a vote in these matters. It's expensive. How do we fund these things as political parties? I think some candidates have even come out to say we should do credit unions. We should. And it should be possible for a
credit unions for what?
Oh, well, the members should be able to contribute. And then out of that, we try to welfare, we invest and all those things. It should be possible for parties to be able to go for loans to run some of these things. We should be able to. It shouldn't be a crime, not a crime, but it shouldn't be out of place for a party to be able to access funds from available normal streams of funding and maybe use their party buildings and
even established banks and give loans to their people.
You understand? So if a businessman wants to finance a party congress and decides to put up his house as a collateral, it should not be a bad debt, so-called in the books and for the Bank of Ghana to be chasing, or it should not look abnormal. You understand? We should make party politics a normal thing, a normal way of doing things like we run our businesses and all that, so that we should be able to raise funds for our party activities just as we do for any other activity. Because at the end of the day, it is the same political parties that will come to power. And if we do not find ways of running these political parties in a way that will not force them to dip their hands into state coffers, then we'll have this problem where when you are in opposition, you are poor as a party. When you are in power, you don't complain.
You can build 20 million.
Well, and you can also single-handedly one day, even in opposition, be able to donate 600,000 for delegates. How much more when you come into power, where your party chairman was able to give? I read to you 1,500 cedis per delegate. It was from your MPP Western regional chairman. He said it. I told you.
You said party secretary.
Oh no, John Boydu's statement is there. I'll give it to you. He confirmed that one too. The 1,500 was from their own MPP regional chairman, who confirmed that their party chairman was able to donate 1,500 per delegate.
Again, you see, I come back to my original.
Senior, I want to move on.
This is totally a private matter.
It can't be. How can it be a private matter?
It is a private matter.
Political parties are public entities. It is actually a ruling of the Supreme Court that political parties are public entities. And
but per that argument, if political parties are private entities and
the actions are public entities.
Are public entities, and the actions of individuals are not in coterminous with that of the party. So if I'm a member of a political party, and I have enough resources, and I say I want to build an office for my constituency or the party, I can do so. However, if the political party as that public institution engages in acts that we are meant to go to find out, the EC is probably meant to even get to see your audited reports and all of those things, that becomes a public matter. So if I want to contribute, if a flag bearer decides that I want to contribute to a congress, it's different from the party asking flag bearers to contribute 420,000.
I thought we were both on the same page that this is a public issue for which if we don't correct, we can play ostrich as we always are doing in this country and pretend that some way somehow the political parties are able to fund themselves magically. Let's do that once we are in government. So in government, you don't have a problem. Some way, somehow, parties are able to find money.
And it's curious that when you're in government, you have no, but just when you leave government,
you are broke. And then, in government, an individual can fund every delegate 1,500.
But when we are in opposition,
when we are in opposition, the point of and in opposition, a flag bearer can give 600,000 cedis. So what we decide to do is that we will not account as we always do. We are not accounting in terms of filing our audited accounts to the Electoral Commission properly. We are secretive about how party politics is funded. We are not having an open debate about it.
It's because we don't see what the punitive measures are. Because I can go to court to compel the parties to file. But
if you are truly,
the true accounts of what they use.
If you are truly a public, if you are truly a public institution, then how come your national executive can come and just announce a fee without necessarily going through a process of getting approval for a certain limit of how much you can actually use?
That is why we need to reform our Political Parties Act.
And
we need to reform it.
And it is not, there's nothing in the act that says that you must have a ceiling.
So that's why the Electoral Commission will be empowered.
Yes.
The Electoral Commission will be empowered.
But you don't, but that's why my argument is that it is a private matter. It is a private matter, and the political party has the right to set whatever fee they want in order to be able to get their agenda across.
A party like the NDC is using for the setting of these fees is that the Electoral Commission will give it a bill for it to meet. Now, if we fund the Electoral Commission, why can't we fund the Electoral Commission to run the internal party election and say that, look, Electoral Commission, bring a budget. That budget will be funded by central government. The payment will be made to Electoral Commission. So once we if it is 15 candidates, it is the Electoral Commission's responsibility to run the election. The party does not have to pay anything.
You're mixing things up. You're now creating.
It's watching in war. And it says it's watching in war. Did the General Secretary pay such an amount of money? This really confirms that the GM-led administration was corrupt, since he can raise such money. This is playing out to his advantage. It's a clear signal that GM is only coming back. Okay, but I don't think GM has said he can pay. Indeed, he's put out some advert to raise funds, and his spokesperson has also said they are depending on the benevolence of their supporters. Kojo?
They have 6 days to raise the money, right?
6 days?
No, they have more than 6 days.
They have more than 6 days.
Well, I thought they were voting
says, Honorable Ababa should take note that we, the disabled and the stammerers, will help Mahama to raise the 420,000 cedis filing fees. He should also contact his able-bodied people to help him raise the same amount. Stephen Indomi says, Selorm, how many buses would 400,000 cities buy? The Sydney and those other people question Freddie Blay about his 275 buses. Hypocrisy is the order of politicians in Ghana.
He's not following what is going
Yes.
on. He criticized it heavily.
We did here. We did criticize it. Anyagri Gideon, he said he's watching CCTV in Garu. If I were the other aspirants, I would save this huge amount by withdrawing from the contest, because as we all know, if any of them wins the primaries, they will make it to the presidency. I'm not speaking ahead of time, but that's the fact. Kwame from Kumasi says, so the MPP suddenly is being used as a benchmark for justifying their outrageous filing fees of 420,000. The chairman and secretary of the NDC both paid 10,000 and 8,500 respectively. They cry the economic conditions are worse, yet they set these absurd fees for their aspirants. We the voters are patiently watching. Nanamu in Koko says the filing fee for the NDC presidential candidate NDC is unjustifiable. The general secretary is goofing and coughing wrong figures all over. We all know the aspirations of the grassroots, which is to rally behind JM. But what is happening in terms of hike in fee is just political chess to make JM indebted to individuals, which will only translate into shambolic governance in 2021. Charles Nyami from Asamankese, nobody should tell you these elections come at a cost. The filing fee to me is in order. Kweku in Adenta says, Selorm, if Akamba says times are hard and that's justification for the 420,000 CDs, then per his logic, the context should be free. Yes, Akamba is not here, but he spoke to me yesterday on Eyewitness News. Bernard from Adina says, Selorm, the amount being charged is huge. The National Executive Committee should listen to the concerns of the people, as the minority leader said. Kudos to you and your guests, as well as Fred Tete Jabano. Kwesi Reynolds from Agona Odobin, there is no justification for the hefty fee of 4.2 billion old CDs being charged by the NDC. It is conspicuous that the top brass of the party executives are determined to debar some aspirants from contesting, thereby selling the slot to the highest bidder. NDC is really selling democracy. A lot of your messages are still coming in. This is the big issue. We are live from our studios here at number 11, Dr. Martin Loop in Adabraka in Accra, on City TV and on City 97.3 City FM. We'll take a quick break, come back and do a quick one on the Supreme Court's decision on the creation of the 6 new regions. Don't go away.
City TV is live. City TV is a free-to-air digital channel. On a digital TV, please press menu on your remote control and run a news search on your TV. Take note that without an antenna, you cannot access City TV on your television. City TV can be accessed on a multi-TV digibox. Tune into City TV and experience your world. City TV, it's your world. It's inspiration. It's the word. The teachings.
When is your time? When is your season? When is your turn? No amount of lies, no amount of liars, political liars, financial liars, family liars, hatred or spiritual liars, no amount of it can stop you.
Tune in to Voice of Inspiration with Archbishop Duncan Williams every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. on City TV.
You're welcome back to the big issue. We are live on City TV, as you can see, and we are live on City 97.3 FM, as you can hear. So we're getting to the Supreme Court discussion. This week, earlier in the week, the Supreme Court threw out a suit which sought to challenge the creation of the new regions in terms of the fact of persons who can vote in that referendum. The suit was actually seeking interpretation from the Apex Court on how the voting should be, or which people should vote. Was it that the commission set up by the president should decide or determine which areas the Electoral Commission should conduct the election or the referendum, or persons in the affected areas could vote? And what is the affected areas? If you are carving out a region from a bigger one, are the guys in the original region not affected too? These were the issues before the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court felt that there was no cause for interpretation because the provision in the Constitution was clear and unambiguous. And so its original jurisdiction to interpret matters like this was not properly invoked, if you like. Let me go to the lawyer amongst us so that he will help us appreciate the matters.
Yes. You see, sometimes persons feel that if you go to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court declines jurisdiction in respect of a matter because you did not invoke its jurisdiction properly, it still would not say anything on the matter. You understand? It's not correct. Sometimes it is just even important for you to even test the provision so that there will be finality on the issue. So to a large extent, this case was crucial because there were conflicting interpretations as to what that article meant in respect of merger of regions and the creation of new regions, because there are different permutations when it comes to the percentages of those who qualify to vote and how much you must obtain in respect of the overall turnout, and the persons who vote, what the percentage should be for
the yes.
And the court, yes, in its opinion, even though said that there was no issue, or at least I've read the daily graphic reportage on the case. All of us haven't obtained certified true copies yet because it's not yet out of the full judgment. But relying on the reportage that I got and listening to what my brother, the lawyer for the plaintiffs, Kwashiga, also said, there was a genuine, because some of the chiefs were complaining that they felt once it was an issue involving the entire region, the people in the region must have a say in what, but the Supreme Court was clear in its mind that the discretion to specify which portions of the region should take part in an election for the creation of a new region was clearly given to the committee to recommend, and for the Electoral Commission to run the election in those specified regions. So as long as that procedure was followed, there was no breach. And so there was nothing, because the Constitution had been very clear, and went for that to say that the Constitution had made a distinction between the merger of regions and the creation of new regions, and used the different percentages. One has a percentage turnout. There must be a percentage turnout of over 60%, and one has about 80%. So there are actually distinctions, and felt that those were adequate. And I think we should appreciate that the framers of the Constitution were not oblivious to the fact that there could be attempts to politically, gerrymander regions and all that.
But the case, Papu, the case that Kwashiga and Co took was that
they wanted everyone in the region to vote.
So that
so they were saying that for the creation of new regions, it affects everybody. It affects everybody because it affects the boundaries.
Everybody
but the Supreme Court ruled. Did the Supreme Court rule on that?
No, what the Supreme Court said was that the provisions of Article 5 was clear.
So there was no ambiguity.
Because they went to seek interpretation.
They were saying that the commission did not have the power to specify any.
Maybe you want to enlighten us on under what circumstances can somebody seek interpretation of a constitutional provision?
It depends on sometimes it depends on the panel. There have been there are what we call activist judges who say that look, the activist judges, you know, if you read the Bro-Base, the Justice Bro-Base and Cloutier, you know, there are some of them who believe that anytime, you see, because that jurisdiction to interpret the Constitution is an exclusive jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. And it comes with, and there are two legs of it, interpretation and enforcement. So it depends on how you frame your issue before the court. Sometimes when you don't think that you have a very clear case of ambiguity, where there are conflicting interpretations being given, because your conflict is if the Attorney General, for example, in filing, decides to give it a contrary interpretation to what you, the plaintiff, are proposing, then indeed you have a conflict of interpretation. And sometimes you get that when there's a political debate on the matter before you go to court. So you kind of sometimes are able to tease something from government. So in this case, if you put out the fact that you intend to put out a writ, for example, or you have the debate, and you hear from government side a different or contrary interpretation to what you are putting out, then you are confident that when you go to court and you put out your interpretation, in filing, the Attorney General will file an interpretation which is contrary to yours. So you have a clear conflict of interpretations. However, you are not always lucky, because then clearly when the Attorney General he did a technical job, he just said that look, to him there was no issue of interpretation because the articles were clear. If he does that, it puts you in a certain, because if the
court get to argue the substantial
precisely, you know, so that the court decides that look, there's no interpretation.
It's like throwing an injunction,
and it will stop. The court can stop there, but sometimes when the court realizes that there is a real issue out there, it goes a step further to try and explain why, in its opinion, there's no controversy. And in doing so, it will then first tell you that, in its opinion, you haven't invoked their jurisdiction clearly because you said there was an issue of interpretation, but there's no issue of interpretation for them. So sometimes lawyers play it safe by going for enforcement. When you want to enforce the Constitution, all you are saying is that somebody has breached a provision of the Constitution. You specify the provisions that you think it has breached, and then you go ahead seeking an enforcement of the Constitution, because under Article 2(1) you are allowed, if you feel that in any circumstance, whether by omission, an act of omission or commission, a party has breached the provision of the Constitution, you cite the provisions that you believe are being breached, and then you go ahead and ask the court to declare that those actions of the public body or individual are in violation of this and this and this section. So in that case, they would have articulated that Bro-Base Commission specifying, but unfortunately, Bro-Base Commission's report is not even out.
It's not even out.
So you are not. So partly some persons felt, look, they could have gone first to compel the government to bring out the Commission's report, see what the Commission actually recommended, and decide whether to allege that the Commission's proposals were in violation of specified provisions. But I think the court, in its wisdom, stated, and if I rely again on the graphic report, it was clear that the court made a distinction between the measure of regions and the demarcation or the creation of regions.
The plaintiffs appear to have confused the two issues.
Have confused the two issues in respect of the constitutional provisions and the requirements. And the court was very clear that there are safeguards within. It's not as if when the report is presented and the government approves it and decides to hold a referendum, it's an automatic creation. You actually are supposed to meet, I think, 60%. Some of them is 50, one of them is 80. Then you go ahead for the turnout itself. So it's not automatic.
So at this point in time, the Supreme Court is saying, all right, that they saw nothing wrong with the constitutional provisions and what needs to be done. So we are going ahead. We are going ahead with the referendum. Let's discuss that.
Yes.
So what I'm getting from me also is that the court did not rule on whether the plaintiff did not seek any interpretation regarding the voting.
No, there couldn't have been because we hadn't get
but what it means is that
the court said that it is clear.
The commission's mandate includes
recommending
where the elections,
and then the EC is the one to do the administration.
Exactly. So in essence, the commission was right within its remit.
But for what you were saying, if we had activist judges, they could go further.
They could go further. You know, they could have gone further.
So are we discussing the fact that
he didn't explain that,
or that or he's explaining what
No,
the
he's
Supreme
explaining
Court.
that.
I just want to lay the foundation that the Supreme Court is put to rest any argument about the creation, the legalities of the that everyone what is going on is legal, and that there's been no wrong step taken by the government in respect of what it was supposed to do, and so we are moving on with the election. The EC has full mandate to run the election within the specified areas, but it is not to be taken for granted that the percentages that are required to be gotten will necessarily be gotten.
Yeah, but that is
the EC.
So that would mean that there could be a possibility that we could go forward with the whole thing,
and there will not be even one region created.
And the region might not be created.
So the guys from the OT region, for example, spoke to us after the ruling, and they said that they were doing everything possible
to get the 80%.
To get the 80%. They were even saying 100%, but that's ambitious. So they're going from house to house,
so to get
explaining to the people what it means.
I'm
going there.
And just after that, government announces that each of the new regions will have 20 million cities to start with.
So 120 million.
And you know one interesting historical fact that a senior citizen once told me, that in creating regions, sometimes it's not as simple as that, because there are going to be fights over where the regional capitals are even going to be sited, and sometimes it may not even play. Even though a lot of people sometimes think that it favors, but both parties in our manifestos actually said that we're going to create new regions.
I can give you an example.
I think that, and it doesn't create a particular advantage for any party, and it actually could create headaches for you, because where you are going to cite regional capitals is going to be a very, very.
Is it not curious? Is it not curious that they exist a voter region? Of course, you have some issues in the north as well. But there's a voter region.
And the northern region as well.
But not as hot as the voter region.
Yes.
Why, in your view, do you think the voter region or the guys in the voter region are taking so much issue with it?
I think it's a historical thing. It's the thing between the south and the north, you know. And if the best persons to talk about this probably will be Dr. Beda Samuels, who have lived there for a long time.
Conflicted right now.
Yeah, who know. I think in recent interview,
you can ask me. You can actually ask me as well.
He's an advisor to the chief.
You know, Need raised a very important issue. Sorry, Eric. About, in all of this, those who think that, by clamoring for this, we'll get this.
Yeah.
When the demarcation, we've seen the demarcations for the referendum was done by the EC. SAR, which is Central Kofi, Akpafu, Lolobi, and Dikpe. There was no district. They didn't put anything there.
Yeah.
But some of the chiefs believe that once they create it, district capital will come to them.
It's going
but if you look at the permutations of the region, the geographical location, it's just completely not possible. So I've just refrained myself from even talking about this matter for now. Except to say that the people who are going to get...
Despite the protests and the issues you've had with it,
and some
Lolobi will still be part of OT, despite your resistance.
It's not about despite the resistance. I mean, at the end of the day, it will be put to a vote. My thinking really at this juncture is that they have to do a lot of campaign.
Because even the district level elections, you don't even get 40%.
Yeah, you don't. But now that there's an inducement,
because
there's
20 million. You believe that?
I don't think that's an inducement.
It's not an inducement, but it provides some impetus. It provides some impetus for the campaign.
70% and then 80% to vote. Yeah, well,
it's possible. Yes, I mean,
he has dealt, I think, extensively with the legal aspect. So I would delve into the politics of it.
Be careful what you say. I'm here.
Well, it's an interesting part.
I mean, you're entitled to share an opinion on this. And he stated right now that it was actually in the NDC's 2016 manifesto.
Yeah.
Oh, you all do it.
Yes.
All of you do it.
And I had to go back and read it for myself to find out exactly what's in there.
They actually promised 5.
And they promised 5.
And
we actually promised 1.
So maybe it was the best thing.
Yeah. And when you follow the process, I'm not going to try and remember the process chronologically, but you follow the process. It has to take a petition coming from a particular group of people, to activate the process, right? And then when it gets to the presidency, it's actually gazetted, and then a commission is set, which was the Justice Bobe Commission.
Yeah.
That went out there and did extensive work and consulted people and all of those things before we even got to this stage. Again, this is an issue to do with the democracy thing that I was talking about. People have every right to test the democracy that we have, the constitution that we have, and say that we feel that we needed some clarity on certain aspects of it, and they have done so. But this thing has also taken some political undertones, and we can't move away from it. You understand? And I feel strongly that, you see, when it gets to this point where we both, like you stated, we both have a convergence in terms of what we want to do, and then for expediency's sake, then we move away from it. It creates issues because, you see, the truth of the matter is that this is not the first time since historically that we have created regions. When you go back to the Gold Coast era, we had only 3 protectorates.
The Northern Protectorate.
Yeah, even Greater Accra, as we speak today, was created in 1982.
Eric, let me jump in here. You see, the thing about law is also the fact that something is legal can actually be used to plunder. If you look at the evidence on the ground, where we've created regions, Upper East or Upper West, I think is a living example.
Upper West is a new West region.
Nothing has happened. And over time, I'll be very quick. Over time, we've seen that and data has shown, research has shown by people who have been watching these issues from IDEC. Recently, some guys we contracted to do something similar to check the incidence of poverty and the incidence of development when these permutations and demarcations have been done. And overwhelmingly, you see that there's really no correlation. So while there is a democratic imperative, really, and a legal whatever statute to honor, we must also try to also look at the other side, because otherwise we'll end up one day and dice up the country into beaten pieces. Because now I may go back and say if the tea didn't go the way, frankly, I'm not really interested, but I'll say, okay, the lobby people, we are not happy with this thing. No, we are going to petition. Then the next day,
a commission will sit on it.
You know, and there must be some finality. It's just like it's just like creating constituencies. If we don't put a cap, the constitution doesn't seem to put a cap. Now we have 275, right?
It may go up to 300.
It will keep going up, and then what? Then we create.
They will build a bigger chamber.
And then
it doesn't help. No, Eric was making a point.
So the point really...
But before that, about your Upper West, Upper East region example.
I'm just forgetting, it's one of the Uppers.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it used to be Upper regions.
Upper West.
And Upper West was carved out of that. People have argued that if Upper West hadn't been carved out, WAB being the capital now wouldn't have been developed the way it is now. Yeah. So Boga would have been the capital. So that side of the country wouldn't have seen this much development.
The question I have for you is that the part that was carved out, have you been monitoring the incidence of poverty?
So, but it's better. I mean, the argument is that it's better now than it would have been.
Oh, but the administrative capital necessarily.
They have an airport, there's some economic activity.
But those the very determinants of
you're saying that we cannot have economic activity
because
and build structures like regional hospitals and stuff, unless we separate it from the region.
Not exactly my point, but it makes it easier. So, for example, there's an administrative capital. I mean, it's a school of thought. It doesn't mean amenities and it comes with amenities. It comes with things. So, for example, there's a seed money.
But you can have all those amenities and all of those things without necessarily demarcating.
Well, so that's also another school of thought, though. So that's why it's a discussion. Eric, make a point here.
Well, so I think that, you see, we can keep on making these arguments and counter arguments surrounding why we want to create regions and all of those things. But the truth of the matter is that there has been a clamor. And you can take some areas where there are practical problems. So you go to the Western region, for instance, where by dint of how we have actually set up our administrative structures, and you say, okay, you are somewhere in Asankegua or Sefri somewhere, and you have to travel all the way to Takoradi to do so. Now, I believe strongly that it creates an avenue for the people to have access to certain administrative things.
But Derek, again, let me be pedantic. Hold on. Let me be pedantic.
Please,
look.
Let me finish.
Sidney will tell you, and again, he just mentioned the point that if the place that has given you a lot of your goods, the Western region, has been very, look at what you've done, instrumental development. Did we really have to wait to create administrative structure?
But it's
we didn't even see the need.
But that's what it is.
It's not an MPP issue.
It's
This is political.
But that's what it is.
I was developing a point, and the point is that that has to be in tandem with a true sense of a decentralized system.
Okay.
And we go back to this whole idea of a local government structure that actually works and is fit for purpose. So that once you have the regions and you have local authorities or districts and stuff that are actually serving the people and doing the things that are meant to do, so that we don't have an unnecessarily centralized structure, that would work. But you see, I think that because of the issues to do with some of these practical things, one, you have the president showing the conviction that let's go ahead and even vote for our MCs and DCs.
Which is a very good thing.
A lot of people have expressed some kind of disquiet.
It's your party. It's your party.
That is why.
It's only your party members who don't want him to do it.
With the conviction of the president.
We all do.
And it makes a lot of sense to me that you need to be able, and if you go back to even our constitution, and you read, the lawyer said, directive principle of state policy, and exactly what the constitution or the state is meant to do and provide to the people, we have to do these things.
Sure.
To be honest with you, people have all sorts of divergent views on the creation of the regions, but I keep saying that we've been doing this thing in a particular manner for a while, and it hasn't worked. Let's find a way of saying that, okay, if this, you would have one administrative or regional hospital in Wa that was not in existence in the past. You would have some principal roles there. There's a university that is going to come there. There are all sorts of things that is going to happen because you need a fire service and all of those things. Maybe it should have been something that should have been there by default. But it didn't exist because even when you listen to the arguments coming from the people in OT, and I know that you have an interest there, they will tell you that for one reason or the other, the southern part seems to be more developed than the northern part. And you can make the argument that, well, maybe there should be a special distribution of the resources and all of this, but it hasn't happened. And the people there are clamoring for that. So some of this conversation that becomes political is not something that really is of any benefit to them or any relevance.
There's a chief priest.
Exactly.
You see, Eric, you have made the point, and critically valid, which we've been discussing in so many ways on this platform. We have not allowed the local government procedure to work.
Yes.
We have not looked at the district development, municipality administrative setups and stuff like that properly, and allowed it and given it the opportunity to settle down. We haven't bedded it down properly. And rather than concentrating on that, we are now slicing and dicing regions, thinking that by doing so, we are going to automatically enable the district formation to take place. And it is wrong. Over the years, if we had allowed the municipal executives to be elected, if mayoral elections were made, if sensibly we look at the position of a regional minister, all right, and we have made this argument so many times, what does the regional minister do?
They don't do anything.
Where is his clout? What authority does he have? Rather, if I have municipalities with mayors who have the responsibility to administer the districts, all right, that make up the municipality, then I have a more sensible way of seeing the performance, all right, of my district mayor and the person who is in charge there. And I can hold them accountable. And the people themselves, when you talk about the disparity between the north and the south, and a better development down south than up north, you can actually change that by having the responsible person who is the mayor of a district that is up north getting his territory working properly. And all you have to do is to look at how Lagos changed.
Yeah.
All right? How did Lagos change so quickly? And it is a classic example of how you leave the federal state or whatever, all right, to suddenly grow itself, to do the right thing. I want to use Nigeria as the example because in so many ways, the complexity of Nigeria far exceeds ours.
Sure.
And Nigeria in so many ways was more backward than we were. But simply by changing the structure and getting the right person in place, they have suddenly changed the whole front of Lagos and made Lagos a more attractive destination for people to go to.
And now the other states are actually
and then
copying.
the actual states are copying. There are other states in Nigeria who are also being able to get the right person in place to make it work. And this is our problem, except that we have a more, if you like, conflicting position, because we still believe, or at least the people still in the village communities still believe that their chiefs are the ones who are responsible for ensuring that the welfare of the people are guaranteed.
Yeah, but you have that in Nigeria as well, where
yes.
you have a very strong chieftaincy.
And apart from that,
developmental.
We also have built on top of what we are doing the administrative setup and then the constituency political setup that are not synchronized.
Yeah.
But Cindy, you see, the thing, I mean, I think I side with you. So, for instance, in terms of the voting for MCs and DCs, for instance, the issue has always been in the past where you go through this whole cumbersome process and the president nominates and then the assemblymen have to go and vote and sometimes it goes through a process. Yeah. And then because of the very nature of some of our districts, you find out that they say, okay, the DC comes from this village, and the MP comes from there, and there's a minister in the area that comes from there. So automatically, this person is meant to come from there. And then people feel that even when decisions are made, they are subjective because people are looking from it from the perspective of where they come from. However, when people go out there and vote, and you are voted for, and you want to be re-elected, it would not matter where you come from. That's because true. You make sure that when there's a distribution of resources, you're not going to put the KVIP, for instance, I mean, in your village because you know that when it comes to the time that you want to be nominated, your chiefs will go and clamor for you or lobby for you. Right? So that's just a step. But I'm saying that when it comes to the regions, just because of some of the challenges that we've had, and there's a saying that if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, you get the same results. Right? So even though we want to do this, and the Constitution actually mandates us to do so, let's also be minded by the fact that let's use it as an opportunity to get it right this time. You know, in management, there's something continuous.
It's a discussion we've had.
Amend the Constitution
many times.
Amendment
and
the
the Constitution has challenges, and we keep talking about it so many times. I remember the Constitution Review Committee and the report, and I read it. I know, but it's been such a long time now.
Yes,
I've forgotten the.
They settled on the
key essentials
the voting of
MMDCs and all. But what their formula was that the government was going to select some people.
They issued a white paper.
Yeah, to vote to be voted for.
But that's wrong.
Yes.
No, it's okay. Please.
All right. Some of the tweets. Kofi Ada tweeting at Kofi's_Ada said President Akufo-Addo should go split Ashanti as well. Better still, make each district a region to develop all of Ghana in a year. We have all these splits, but we are setting up development authorities. How will these decisions help development? Politics galore. Number of ministers to hit 121. All right. So he thinks when the regions are split, there'll be more ministers.
And the fear, that's the fear.
All right. So this is 97.3 City FM, and this is City TV as well. We want to move on to the next topic, but we'll take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll now delve into the issue of the SITAC strike, which we started earlier by interviewing the SITAC president. We'll do that very briefly and then conclude on the Doomsor matter. Don't go away.
What is
So, all right. No, we're back. Welcome back. So we go straight to the discussion on SITAG. The Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana have been striking, and their strike is actually entering the 5th week or so. And by law, if lectures or classes stall for 21 days, then it means that whole semester will have to be annulled. So the government yesterday closed down all 46 colleges of education. And the strike by the teachers primarily is hinged on what they call their market premium and their book and research allowance. I'll start with Eric on that. The president I spoke to said that we've had some misconception that their strike is illegal. That is not true. So if what he's saying is anything to go by, why is government saying that they will not pay their November salaries? And I think that worsened the situation. I thought they were getting to a point, or the two sides were getting to a point, until the announcement was made that government was not going to pay their November salaries. And it appears that government is carried through with that position or threat. So as we speak, their November salary is not paid. In the end, the students are those going to suffer. What is government doing?
Well, my understanding is that meant to be processes that you follow if you want to go on strike. And that the SITAC hasn't followed the due process in terms of getting there. But I mean, with issues of this nature, you also have to be very circumspect, because they are essentially coming up from a backdrop of conversation that they've been having for quite a while, even before NPP government came into power, as a result of the colleges of education being given full tertiary statuses. And that by dint of that, they are meant to also enjoy the same benefits as the other.
But that's fair, isn't it?
Well, I mean, again, these are things that are justified, but you have to go through a certain process to be able to get there. I feel that it's rather unfortunate that we've allowed it to get to this point where the students are meant to go home. But, I mean, we're talking about the law here. Once the law stipulates that after 21 days, the colleges of education should be shut, then that's what has happened. But I hear that in the next couple of days or so, the Labour Commission has some kind of meeting between the SITAC and government to find a resolution to the impasse. This is not the first time these things has happened, and I always feel that we adopt a reactive approach to some of these things because it's been going on for a while. And then it also speaks to the fact that once the schools, the colleges were upgraded, then all the attendant things, I think I heard the president of SITAC actually say that at the point when it was done, then he should have been able to...
the other things should have kicked in, the book and research allowance, etc.
And all of those things. And this is saying that either was ignored or we were essentially oblivious to it getting to this point. So I express the view that once the Labour Commission has taken up the matter and all of those things, we can find a way of doing it. Because you see, you go on strike, whilst it can be legitimate or illegitimate, regardless of where you look at it from. But in the final analysis, the students who suffer. And there's always a certain orientation to make it look like government is meant to cede all the time because of some kind of blackmail to start with. Because it's law. Government is also governed by the process.
But the point is they are negotiating on market premium.
Yeah,
now, something else is in the budget.
What is market premium?
It's part of the
they inherited this.
The market period, single spine structure, where people are put on specific grades based on what they do,
or what they bring to the table.
So this is not really an issue to do with their salaries per se, but it's to do with the other attendant benefits that
because they want
comes in
the
the book allowance and all of
Actually, it's about the equivalence.
And you say that,
yeah. So
because of like I have a degree and I'm teaching in this college.
Yes.
And another. My opposite number has a degree, but he's teaching
he's getting better.
He's getting better.
You know,
but possibly because he's teaching better. You see,
not necessarily.
No. You see, when it gets to my point, no,
not necessarily.
But it does not issue. It's working. They've equalized it. After to more socialism, whether you teach well or not, you should get the same pay. Because we have the same degree. It is wrong.
Institution.
No. And so this whole market premium thing has been the basis. It defies the laws of demand and supply. The fact of the matter is that the fact that you have an accounting background and you are working at City FM, and an accountant is working at the Department of Parks and Gardens, where there's nothing happening. Why should he receive the same salary like you?
No, but
we're breaking
but the thing is that I mean, when it comes to
moralize the
when it comes
and
to
this was the problem we had with
it brings to the fore some of the challenges that we have in terms of systematic challenges. One,
so you just inherited
on the backdrop of the conversation that you just had with the president, we were saying that 5% was put on the table, and based on what has been the norm in the past, that's what they could have been able to negotiate on, and they feel that something different has
actually. So there was no actually negotiation. You actually been
told that this was happening, and that's why they've gone on strike. I feel that the Labour Commission would have to act with a bit more dispatch. Let's create a system where it doesn't have to get to this point before.
But it's in the budget already, so it will go to 2020.
Exactly, and I think that's the reason why they have taken this approach.
All right, very well.
So this market, this market premium in the book allowance is not in their salary.
No, the book and research allowance is different. It's an allowance which helps them to research, get books,
But it is not at the same rate. It's not pegged at the same rate as the traditional universities because they were upgraded from colleges of education to
training colleges,
a full tertiary status. About 3-4 years ago.
But that is the challenge of our democracy. The fact that there's a polytechnic, let it be a polytechnic. These people came and said, we call it technical university.
Because
the moment they do
demand.
that, hold on. The moment you do that, I'm not trying to say that people shouldn't receive fair compensation. The moment you do that, they are now equal to what the universities, then they start clamoring. Then there's pressure on the economy. Tertiary CTAC, colleges of education, they are colleges of education. They are doing what they have to do. All of a sudden, they are tertiary.
Yeah, because you want to provide quality teachers.
It just doesn't work that way. It doesn't mean that while they were there, it doesn't. Please wait. It doesn't mean that while they were doing that, they were not providing. See, the moment you do that, you create problems for the system.
It's part of the policy considerations. That's why.
No, but you started the single spine business, and then made it in such a way that now people started asking for market premium. So, let's say a pharmacist who is working, and again within the government setup,
and even the market premium, as far as I'm concerned, it was defined erroneously. Because
it was defined erroneously.
The reason why they pegged the structure in such a way that if you have a degree, you're meant to get a certain pay.
Yes.
And then based on what you do, either you're a doctor or you're a this or that, then they apply a certain premiumness to
that's
what
a
you do.
Capitalist arrangement.
That's a scientific way of it's based on the constitutional provision. There must be equity in public wage.
But it doesn't apply even in
equity, but demonstrable work. You see, we should never pay people based on the fact that they have degrees and they have the same degrees.
The funny issue when you get married and you want to divorce, the principle is that all property acquired during your marriage. The presumption is what? The presumption of equity is what? Equality.
Yeah, but the limit please, don't moralize, don't get into those.
That is law.
Yeah, but that's law. But the fact of the matter is that even then, when they are determining, they will determine. Oh, the woman has been very helpful, taking care. They calculate all these things. But this one, no.
But you see, a housewife, for example, a housewife who may not have a degree You understand?
Once you're a housewife,
you are going to calculate.
You are shooting yourself because the housewife who doesn't have a degree, when they are calculating, they calculate how much time she spends.
That is the market premium bit.
Yes, but
no.
But the market premium is, of course, that's the point.
Exactly.
But the challenge here is that the way the public system
has reinvented. You want to say that if I work at Parks and Gardens and you work at a so-called busier ministry, there must be a distortion some way in how we.
But the value you are bringing to the economy is different.
My point is
that the value you are bringing to the economy is different.
My institution is more profitable.
That's why we set up the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission.
Again, we wanted
a scientific way of dealing with these issues.
It's not scientific.
And we've set up institutions, and the institutions must be allowed to work.
In any case, I blame you, the politicians, because they should deal with you that way.
And I like the way the polytechnics, the SITA guys are going about their business. They're trying to go about it legally. The ministry has also said that if you go on strike and we determine that the strike has been illegal, you understand, you will not pay you. So the National Labour Commission is the arbiter. They will determine whether the strike was illegal or not. And I think unions in Ghana should begin to follow best practice. Where yes, if you or associations, if you collect dues and you want to embark on a strike, pay your workers or pay your members from the dues, so that if, for example, you decide that to sustain the strike action for maybe 4 months, and you are going to do perhaps what our term as an illegal strike, you want to stretch your point and make your point that look, we will not work until we are ahead.
They pay from their dues.
You pay from your dues.
Wow.
You understand? So at the end of the day,
Sydney hasn't spoken.
No, Sydney asked questions. Sydney is fine.
No, there's a reason why I want Sydney to speak on this matter. Because you see, Sydney understands the value of work. The value of these two, my good friends here, politicians. I know, I'm just joking. You see,
he's a capitalist.
This whole market premium thing, it is a matter we need to deal with.
Very well. We'll do a whole discussion on that.
They have a degree, you're digging pits. I have a degree. I probably the same degree. No. Listen, you're digging pits at some ministry. Then I have a degree. Let me use the reverse. I'm digging pits. You have the same degree, but you are breaking your back, crunching numbers. We should never be paid the same.
No, because the job is. But if I'm an accountant at Ministry A and you are also an accountant at Ministry B,
exactly,
why shouldn't you be paid the same?
Exactly.
Because we do the same work.
Let me give you an example.
Relevant. No. We want to move on. We want to talk about doom stuff.
So to round up, this market premium is like is the difference between a wife and a prostitute.
I'm not
where you pay the prostitute a premium, but you don't pay the wife.
It's only Eric who can answer this one. Because he's in government. He's in government. He makes the payment.
So that I will put the salon straight.
He makes the payment.
This example,
he makes the payment. I
I'm not an expert on fair wages and all of this, but I feel that you see, we
don't worry. Let's talk about doom. So yes,
let's talk about doom. So
yes, just 2 minutes each, I think, on this.
Okay.
I mean, earlier in the week, the minister addressed a press conference to allay the fears of Ghanaians that we are not returning to the days of this. And as far as I'm concerned, after that press conference, things appear to have normalized. We've not had the complaints again. The text messages were coming through that they were off, etc. We've not seen that again, which means that they were actually doing something. And true to his words, the issue has been fixed. And today's daily graphic, government settles $150 million of WAPCO debt. Ghana has settled more than $150 million out of the $230 million of its indebtedness to the West African gas pipeline, which is WAPCO. The payment representing more than 50% of Ghana's indebtedness to WAPCO was made possible through the ESLA. Speaking to journalists after the opening ceremony of the 2-day West African Gas Pipeline Committee of Ministers meeting in Accra yesterday, the MD of WAPCO, Walter Perez, said he was optimistic the debt would fully be paid before the end of 2019. He said the settlement had contributed greatly to the efficient and reliable operation of the company. So initially we heard it was not a funding problem, a financing problem, but we've seen some issues there. Indeed, the point was made that it was because gas, there was low pressure in the gas, etc. The issue is, are we really out of the woods? Are we not getting there? Do we have contingencies to ensure that should any of these things go down, we have enough generation to meet, the consumption?
Well, I mean, I have absolutely no reason to doubt the Minister of Energy and even the technical people who have come from the ministry regarding what it is that we were actually facing. And of course, I mean, when you're in government and somebody even says that my lights have gone off for a minute, you have to deal with it. I mean, there's absolutely no justification to come out and say maybe it's this is a nomenclature of the problem or not. So for me, I think that the minister acted with dispatch. We are not in Dumso. I mean, it's everybody in this country who has experienced Dumso would appreciate.
So this was
no, but and
Dumkra.
No, but he has a generator, so I'm sure he has not.
You see, when I sit on platforms with NDC people, and all of a sudden they find their voice, I become nauseating sometimes. Let me tell you something.
Oh, really?
And they claim this. They have created this perception that they fixed Dumso and that something happened and then as it was an act of God and then they came to fix it. Let me tell you what I think about NDC. When they took over power in 2009, there was no Dumso. In 2010, there was no Dumso. In 2011, there was no Dumso. In September 2012, that's when we started experiencing Dumso, which we experienced for close to 4 years.
The demand has grown.
I'll tell you.
Let me finish. Right. No, you can use that. The demand has grown. It points to planning. Right? It points to planning.
Planning on your part. Let me finish. It coincided with the increased explosion of the use of mobile phones.
And all sorts of other excuses and everything.
We really have some explanation of this.
Listen. And it took them 4 years.
Yes.
4 clear years to even activate emergency power plants. Emergency.
It's like
the site
the factories are not built to
Let me finish. The site that I went to, and a small basic education that I have. And when somebody wants to define what emergency means, do you know what emergency is? Now, to use that and go around, in previous, because something suffocating, go around saying that, we solved the issue, as if that somebody created the issue.
But you don't
and then you came to resolve it.
But
you were in power for 4 years.
Yes,
it's the same conversation.
Solving the issue.
It's the same conversation when we start having a conversation around the economy. And Selorm, your lives. You need to be, but energy is not economics. What are you talking about? When we start this conversation, we need to ask them certain questions. In 2014, when the former President John Mahama came and told the entire country that the meat has been eaten to the bone. The NDC had been in power for 5 years. Who have been managers of the economy?
You are confusing two
I
issues.
am not. It's the same thing. Listen, but you are not part of this conversation. Let me finish and then now, if you join these two things, these two examples that I've given you, and all of a sudden it looks as if they were expecting some kind of doom mongering. They were expecting and hoping that Dumso was back. Especially when the impact of that negative effect of Dumso is still being felt by the economy. You understand? But I am glad. And this is a public record. The minister has stated categorically what the issues are. And that it's being dealt with. And as you've confirmed, it happened over a couple of weeks or so and people complain. And it has to be dealt with. Even if my light goes up for a minute, it's a responsibility of government to deal with it. We are not going to make any excuses. But you see, as we go along, we need to also have this. We keep talking about our energy mix and what it is that we need to do. It's obvious that we still need to do a bit more, even in the renewable energy space. And let's go ahead and do more.
The problem with
let's not listen to these guys when their track record actually points to total dismal performance in this
and generation
people are even talking about tidal waves, they're talking about solar wind and all of this. Let's take advantage of
that. They have no foresight when it comes to energy matters.
But you haven't shown any foresight to start.
We had no, please. You see, in the 90s, in the 90s, when we realized that Akosombo had a problem, that was when the NDC government then decided to start dealing with thermal energy to change the mix. So we had the hydro and low. Then we decided to add the thermal part.
I didn't do quite well on the solar, just 2 megawatts.
No. So the thermal technology was.
And then after 5 years, we experienced dooms for 5 years.
When we left office, you understand, we had introduced the thermal mix in an attempt to address a clear problem with the hydro, where we were only relying on hydro energy for our energy solutions. When they came in between 2001 and 2008, because they lacked foresight, they did not add not even 1 megawatt of installed capacity.
That is not true. And you know that is not true.
You see, the point is when you started, we did to tell you that it doesn't take one day.
The refitting of Akosombo that gave us an additional 700 megawatts and all of those things.
It does not take one day to be able to add on to the energy mix. You must have a long-term plan.
So they had a long-term plan.
They had nothing. They had nothing.
In Bui.
When they started Bui, at least we completed it.
Yes,
the point is you had not added. Listen, you had not added. When we talk about adding to the capacity, we mean at least within your life as a government, you need to install it so that we will be able to enjoy it. So when we had the problem, when we decided that we were going to expand.
Who started Asogli?
We decided to expand the issue of by bringing in the emergency to deal with
for 4 years. It took you to bring Kappa. 4 years and
that we had inherited because they didn't have the foresight to add
for 5 years.
What was there.
But how can a government that didn't have the foresight
what their problem is that they are afraid of their own shadows. Whenever there's even the slightest form of light or the light out, then they begin to wonder, hey, are we back to work? Because they were playing propaganda with it in an election. They were telling us that it was a financial issue and not a generational issue. Now they realize that by their own admission on the national platform, their own minister has said that since they came to power, they've not added even 1 megawatt because they had inherited people.
You guys signed
because the then president decided that
we'll be exporting
beyond. That was the whole vision of WAPCO. That was why we have the West Africa Power Pool.
Very well.
Because we want to be not only a generational nation, we want to export to the other countries so that we can earn foreign exchange.
Very well.
They come back and decide to cancel these agreements and come and tell us that those agreements were expensive to the country.
So
they have no vision when it comes to
where do you go from the maze of the political?
So your vision was emergency power supply when we started Bui and we started Asogli, and because you come to country, you had a vision.
Give us enough time to debate issues of energy.
I have absolutely no challenges at all.
I would have time for you with the comes to energy and
this whole thing. You see the energy thing going in Ghana is very much like the bullfruit supply on a big issue. You see, it has become such that there's always some kind of extended logic. For some time now, we've been quite regular with bullfruits.
Yes,
in fact,
today
I didn't because
we must protect the bullfruit, the lack of bullfruit.
But suddenly today,
there's no bullfruit.
Last week, I had some bullfruit that was bought was even emaciated.
Yes.
No, you were not here last week.
Last week was very good bullfruit. Last week was very good bullfruit.
Yes, very good bullfruit. So the demand and supply thing. So we have bullfruit today.
So today there's bullfruit, but that doesn't mean that because we don't have bullfruit today, then the whole bullfruit crisis is in
there's no food crisis. There's no
exactly.
We need
There's
market
no
premium.
food crisis.
We need market premium.
There's no food crisis. It's a small hiccup.
Yes.
It's a small hiccup. Rejabano wasn't able to go through East Legon.
Okay.
So he
He
couldn't
gets
get
to
the
go
full
through from
food.
East Legon.
And,
They are very good places to get them from.
Whoa.
That therefore doesn't mean that
posh
we have the issue.
Muscle.
So just because the lights have gone off once or twice and have not been as consistent doesn't mean that there is a doomsor. The fact of the matter is, since this MPP government took over in 2017, the energy has been more stable. Power has been more reliable.
But not to argue, but the guys who argue that is because of the things they put in place.
Yeah, but we can also make that argument if you want. If you want to extend it to
you
that
can
point.
make that argument.
We can also do anything.
So what?
You can make that argument.
You plot.
Your energy
the fact
is
is
you don't add 1 megawatt.
The fact is there.
This argument. I mean, come on. Sometimes this argument
is a lot more consistent.
Very well.
And it is getting better.
Thank you very much. Franklin will speak about this next week. This is how we conclude today's edition of The Big Issue, which came to you live from our studios at number 11, Dr. Martin Lupin at Adaraka, Accra. You heard us on 97.3 City FM and watched us on City TV. My guests have been Sidney Kesley-Hayford, member of Occupy Ghana and a financial analyst, Franklin Kujo, founding president of Imani Africa, Nick Papo Samoa Ado, private legal practitioner, and a member of the NDC. Eric Chum is a spokesperson for government. Keep watching. Yes.